I'd like to welcome everyone today. I'm Emily Stevens, President of the Board. Call this board meeting on June 11th, 2026 to order. The time is 5:01. At this time, we'll open 1.01, the flag salute. Trustee Cavazos, please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay, before I open 1.02, has everybody had an opportunity to fill out a public speaker card? If you have not, we have them up front. They're yellow cards. You can come up and fill one out. Okay. No more cards are going to be taken for this item now. So Trustee Zamora, will you please make the motion to approve the agenda?
Thank you, Madam President. I would like to make a motion to adopt the agenda with the following changes. Reference material has been added for item 2.18, Employment Agreement, Assistant General Counsel, Office of the General Counsel, and reference material has been added for item 4.01, 2027 Legislative Bill Drafts.
Awesome, thank you. Do I have a second?
I will second the motion.
Thank you, Trustee Biasotti. Let's vote. Motion passes. We move on. We move on to Section 2, Consent Agenda Information. Do we have anybody signed up for consent? No. Okay, I will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda. Trustee Dominguez.
Thank you, Madam President. I'd like to request that we approve, the consent agenda 2.01, item 2, without 2.14 and 2.15.
So you're asking to approve the consent agenda, but you want to, what action do you want to do with
I would
those?
like to approve the consent agenda and remove 2.14 and 2.15 for discussion, possible action.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. Does anybody want to second that motion? Trustee Biasotti.
I will second the motion.
Okay, let's vote on that. Motion does not pass. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda? Or I'm sorry, to approve the consent agenda? Trustee Bustamante Adams.
Thank you, Madam President. I move that we approve the consent agenda.
Do I have a second? Trustee Zamora?
I will second that motion.
Let's vote. Motion passes. Consent agenda approved, and now we move forward. Trustee Dominguez, please read the warrants.
Thank you, Madam President. Ratified warrants as listed in bills payable, transmittal, and board memorandum number 20, 25, and 26 in the total amount of $317,954,177.64. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Dominguez. Before I open 3.01, is there anyone who has not filled out a public comment card who would like to at this time? None that I see. No more cards will be taken for this item. Moving forward, let's go ahead and open 3.01, Perceptions of Student Safety.
All right, try this again. Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Ebert, I'm Kevin McPartland, Associate Superintendent of the Education Services Division. I'm joined tonight by Dr. Sam Scavella, Assistant Superintendent over the Safe and Respectful Learning Environments and Opportunities Division, and Mr. Christopher Huffman, Assistant Superintendent of the Assessment, Accountability, Research, and School Improvement Division. This presentation will detail information related to our students' perception of safety based on the results of our most recent district-wide survey. The board has received similar presentations beginning in May of 2019, with the last presentation occurring on May 8, 2025. As a high-level summary, we are pleased to share 2 trends that were highlighted by the data we will share with you tonight. 1, overall, students report they feel safer on our campuses and in our schools. 2, students report they feel more connected to their school and adults in their school. Madam President, as we know, Dr. Welsh is our data dude, but with your permission, I'll turn it over to Mr. Huffman, who is our numbers know-it-all.
Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Ebert, for the record, Christopher Huffman, the Assistant Superintendent for the Assessment, Accountability, Research, and School Improvement Division. The Clark County School District District-wide survey, also known as the DWS, for students, parents, and guardians and staff is an annual series of surveys originally developed during the 2015-2016 school year. The DWS was developed with questions from prior CCSD iterations of the survey, the University of Chicago Consortium on School Research, and the Nevada Department of Education. The purpose of the DWS is to elicit feedback on the culture and community of each of the schools and CCSD as a whole. School principals use survey feedback to identify areas of growth and to implement systems and structures that promote improvement. This past school year, the DWS was conducted with students in grades 4 through 12 from December 1st through December 9th of 2025, and then again from January 5th through January 9th of 2026. The survey window was shorter this year compared to previous years due to other surveys being administered in the fall pertaining to the school start times and the strategic plan in addition to the DWS. This slide shows the response rates from students in grades 4 through 12 on the questions that compile the student safety and connectedness metrics that I'll share throughout the presentation. As an additional point of reference, these particular metrics were also used to inform the Destination District strategic plan success indicators for students reporting feeling safe in schools and students reporting feeling known, valued, and connected. While the number of participants is smaller than previous years, it does represent a higher percentage of eligible students participating. The full results of the district-wide survey are now available on the district website, including district, municipality, region, and school-level results. When it comes to a student's ability to learn, we know that there are some non-academic factors that assist in determining the ability to succeed. A key element of this is the feeling of being safe. CCSD measures perceptions of student safety from 4 questions within the district-wide survey for students as shown on this slide. These questions demonstrate student feelings towards the safety and security of a school. I'll now share the results for the overall district, followed by additional slides for each grade band. The 2025-2026 results show increases in student perceptions across all student groups for the perceptions of student safety. On this slide, you'll find the results specifically from our elementary schools. For elementary schools, the results include students in grades 4 and 5. The grades at elementary are purposely selected to allow for the highest degree of independence in the completion of the survey, therefore more reliable results of student perceptions. The results of the 2025-2026 school year reveal some bright spots in the Black, Hispanic Latino, English learner, and Title I school student groups. Other percentage positive responses were statistically insignificant or slightly lower across many of the student groups when compared to the prior school year. On this slide, you'll find the results from our middle schools, which include results from students in grades 6 through 8. The results of the 25-26 school year reveal percentage positive responses significantly higher across all student groups when compared to previous years. And on this slide, you will find the results from our high schools. For our high schools, the results include students in grades 9 through 12. Once again, we can observe that the results of the 2025-2026 school year had significant increases across all student groups. This also represents the highest district high school rate with the exception of the 2022 school year completed during, the 2020 to 2021 school year completed during distance learning. This final slide for the student safety results, you'll find the overall shifts for student perceptions of safety as compared to the 2022 to 2023 school years. While elementary school numbers are aligned to the 2022-2023 numbers, the district middle school and high school perceptions have greatly increased over this time. In addition to the perception of student safety, another non-academic factor that assists in determining the ability to succeed is the feeling of connection. The measure of perceptions of connectedness is derived from 4 questions within the district-wide survey for students as shown on this slide. While these questions have not previously been presented to the board, collectively they demonstrate the students' feeling of feeling known, valued, and connected. On this slide, you will see the district overall results for the perception of connection. For the 2025-2026 results, we see increases in student perceptions across all student groups. On this slide, you will find the results from elementary schools. The results for the 2025-2026 school year reveal responses lower across the student groups when compared to the prior year, with minimal to no changes in the Black, Hispanic, Latino, and Title I school student groups. On this slide, you will find the results from middle schools, which reveal percentage positive responses higher across all student groups when compared to previous school years. And similar to middle schools, the results of the 2025-26 school year for high schools reveal percentage positive results higher across all student groups when compared to previous year results. For this final data slide of the perceptions of connectedness, you'll find the overall shifts in student perceptions as compared to the 2022 to 2023 school year. While elementary school numbers are approaching 2022 numbers, the district middle school and high school perceptions have greatly increased. At this time, I will turn the presentation over to Dr. Sam Scavella, Assistant Superintendent of the Safe and Respectful Learning Environments and Opportunities Division.
Thank you. Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Ebert, Sam Scavella for the record. The challenges and key lessons we have identified begin with the strength of our internal systems and protocols. We must first recognize that students' sense of safety often begins well before the first bell rings. We are navigating an influence gap in which many factors shaping students' perceptions often occur outside of the school setting. Social media and off-campus interactions do not adhere to the school boundaries, and conflicts or trends that originate in these spaces often carry into our classroom the very next day. We also recognize that students' perception, particularly at the elementary school level, are influenced by their families and broader communities. As a result, our work extends beyond ensuring safety. It also requires building trust and strong partnership with the entire family unit. So when we think about our lessons learned, this work has reinforced 2 key lessons. First, we must broaden our definition of student voice. It is not enough to hear from the students who are easiest to reach. We must intentionally create opportunities for all student groups to share what they need to feel safe. Safety efforts are only effective when they are informed by the perspectives of those they are designed to support. Second, we have reaffirmed that safety is not a single measure, but a multi-tiered ecosystem. So our approach prioritizes restorative and culturally responsive practices to ensure every student and every family feels a sense of belonging, along with social and emotional learning to equip students with the skills to navigate internal conflicts and external influences. Most importantly, we center our work on meaningful relationships. A student is safest when they are connected to trusted adults, and our strategy moving forward is to keep these human connections at the core of our safety systems. This approach allows us to elevate student, family, and community voices while proactively fostering an inclusive school environment that supports positive student behaviors across all campuses. So our district decisions and district actions are contributing to improved student perceptions of safety by intentionally aligning systems and practices. Schools are embedding tiered fidelity inventory data into their school improvement plans to strengthen Tier 1 supports and overall school climate. The tiered fidelity inventory enables schools to identify root causes of disciplinary issues by measuring how consistently foundational practices such as clear expectations, positive behavior supports, and inclusive climate strategies are implemented. When integrated into school improvement plans, this data highlights gaps in prevention and allows schools to proactively address underlying issues before they escalate into discipline incidents. Ongoing monitoring through PBIS apps and Focus Ed dashboards ensures fidelity, accountability, and continuous improvement across all campuses. Schools continue to implement a strong restorative leadership structure that emphasizes proactive relationship building, which is 80% of how we should be using restorative practices, while implementing responsive approaches to repair harm when it occurs 20% of the time. Our culturally inclusive and restorative champions serve as site-based trainers, building staff capacity and ensuring consistent school-wide implementation of restorative practices across schools. Our district continues to provide targeted site-based support through ongoing school visits, coaching, and administrative training aligned to district policies. This includes the Tiered School Support Initiative, which has focused on strengthening middle school practices over the past year, as well as district-wide support for implementing restorative approaches. Monthly, differentiated professional learning further reinforces these efforts, ensuring alignment with strategies that promote student belonging and enhance perceptions of safety. We have facilitated 15 student town halls this year. These monthly forums elevate student voice and build trust and provide real-time perception data to inform school-level decision-making. Increased student engagement contributes to a stronger sense of belonging and psychological safety. Schools are identified and prioritized based on monthly reviews of discipline and attendance data. School teams then select a representative group of students that reflects the diversity of the student body across demographics, academic performance, and behavior. Following each town hall circle, discussions notes are analyzed and staff surveys are administered to inform a follow-up meeting in which school teams then develop an action plan that identifies key themes and outlines targeted strategies to address student needs along with staff needs as well. Additionally, we would like to highlight the ongoing work of the School Justice Collaborative. This longstanding partnership amongst the Clark County School District, CCSD, School Police, the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department, Juvenile Justice Services, and the district's attorney's office has served for our community for many years. More recently, the collaborative has strengthened its focus on proactive interagency communication and coordinated problem solving to promote safety, prevent incidents, and ensure a unified response to concerns affecting students, schools, and the surrounding community. Through these efforts, partner agencies work together to support safe, secure, and positive learning environments both on and around our campuses. We continue to shift from punitive to restorative discipline while maintaining a strong focus on campus safety. As of May 1st of this school year, administrators have documented more than 27,300 restorative resolutions. By the close of the 25-26 school year, that number exceeded 31,309 restorative approaches, compared to fewer than 3,000 annually prior to 2021. This represents a 980% increase and demonstrates sustained system-wide implementation of restorative practices across the district. Data also reflects a meaningful transition towards accountable, relationship-centered approaches that improve school climate and strengthen student safety. When we compare the data to the previous school year, we have seen a 29% reduction of weapons-related infractions, a 17% reduction in fighting, a 13% reduction in theft, and a 9% reduction in threats towards students and campuses, along with a 7% reduction in racially motivated incidents. So looking ahead, we aren't just identifying challenges, we are operationalizing our response. Throughout this past spring, school stakeholders analyzed district-wide survey data as we established the foundational commitments and metrics for the Destination District Clark County School District Strategic Plan 2026 through 2031. As we move into the summer months, we have a clear roadmap for translating this data into action. We are integrating these survey findings into principal supervisor and principal monitoring conferences to ensure alignment at every level of leadership. The summer months are very critical for implementation as schools revise their implementation plans based on their latest data and prepare their systems and structures, which are the how and where of daily operations for the 26-27 school year. This is not a mere data review. It's a comprehensive core component of our continuous improvement review and plan process. Ensuring schools' plans are living documents that reflect authentic feedback we received from the families this spring is incredibly important as we further strengthen this feedback loop. We are making it a priority to increase student town halls, specifically for our elementary schools. By engaging our youngest learners directly, we ensure that our strategic roadmap is informed not just by the metrics, but also by students' experiences in our schools. We are aligning this qualitative and quantitative results to ensure that our commitments to safe, respectful, and consistent environments are tied to specific measures and measurable metrics. As the summer progresses, the work shifts from analysis to active preparation. Our administrators and school teams will participate in intense professional learning focused on sharpening our Tier 1 social-emotional behavior expectations. Our goal is to ensure that every student in every classroom and every school experiences a consistent and high-quality baseline of support and well-being. This timeline ensures that when our doors open this fall, we aren't just returning with the status quo. We are returning with a refined, data-driven strategy for student success. Madam President, that concludes our presentation. We are happy to address any questions at this time.
Thank you so much. At this point, I will open it up for a discussion with my colleagues. Trustee Zamora.
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you for the presentation. Dr. Scavella, on slide 16, and I'm addressing it to you because you presented slide 16. When we're talking about challenges, social media events specifically, I'm curious to know if our messaging, when we're talking about safe voices, is also messaging about if there is things you have seen on social media, that is something that should be reported. Do you believe we're doing messaging on safe voices on that?
Madam President, members of the board, Trustee Zamora, thank you for the question. We are very cognizant of what occurs outside of our school buildings in regards to what happens on our social media, because we know that that impacts our students at a great level. And a lot of times that is what fuels a lot of the conflicts that we have in school. So we encourage the reporting of Safe Voice. We address it promptly. We have reporting systems and protocols in which we connect with the families when we get those reports. And we ensure that they are investigated thoroughly and that we bring students to the point of understanding those behaviors through the restorative processes and approaches so that we can ensure that those incidents that impact behavior on our school campuses, especially those ones that are in alignment with conflicts with our code of conduct, are not repeated. And then they understand the core to what are those messaging that are going on the Safe Voices and social media, because those are the things that we really can't control.
And I just bring it up because I know it has been successful in a lot of the issues that flood into the next day at school if something happens the night before. Superintendent, I think a deeper question is, I know we have banners at the schools, we see them, Safe Voices, there's an issue. Is there any plans of any messaging to also kind of do a breakdown of what kind of issues, or if you feel unsafe? So it, I guess, goes out the scope of people thinking that it's only things that are happening on campus, but something like social media or the night before can also be addressed.
Thank you, Trustee Zamora. So it's not only the Clark County School District that amplifies that, but the State Department of Education and also all of our partners. So, the best work is done at the classroom level as well, making sure that our educators are informing our students, not only, just up at a district level, right, but that our teachers in every moment that they have the opportunity to work with our students. But this team has done a phenomenal job with, reviewing that data constantly, working with principals, working with our partners across different areas to make sure that that information is there.
Thank you for that. My second question is actually for you, Superintendent. As we talk about lessons learned, we must continuously seek additional opportunities to include student voice from all student groups. Part of it, I think that, I don't want to speak for all, Ramona, speaking as an individual, is there a possibility we can explore when we're doing our student reports, our school board meetings, to bring in different groups of students to present, even if their win is they passed an AP class, right? Or they passed, with better grades and their grades have improved just outside the regular student council, straight A, college-ready students.
Thank you, Trustee Zamora. So that's something that the team has spoken about even after the first few presentations. They came from the student council group. And our chief communications and I just met this morning because one of my requests, even just for our student council, right, the superintendent's advisory council, was to diversify even more that group. And so ensuring that it's not the students that always raise their hand for student council and all of that. And so this upcoming group we're really excited about, reviewed the data. It's, about 50-50, and then also making sure those that do serve in student council groups traditionally and those that do not. So really excited about the diversity coming up with the groups, as well as ensuring that we have the student voice from our alternative schools. They have not been included in the past, and so we're ensuring that they're included in the Superintendent's Advisory Council as well.
Thank you for that. I really appreciate it. And my last question is about data. And I'm not sure you're going to have an answer, but can we say that any of the success that we've had on slide 18 can possibly be since we implemented the cell phone pouches and there has been a decrease of, fighting, bullying, and possible theft?
Thank you for the question. With the district-wide survey, it is a very static piece, and so there's not an opportunity to explain why certain things might happen. So there's a lot of assumptions that could be made, and that could be one of them, but I can't say definitively that that would be something that led to that.
Okay.
Trustee Zamora, if I can jump in and just piggyback on that answer. So as part of our work, we have principal advisory councils for Education Services Division where we speak to principals monthly regarding things occurring on their campuses. And so just anecdotally, especially at the secondary level, middle school and high school, the principals do report that students not having access to their phones to coordinate meetings, to coordinate misadventures is making a difference. So we're getting that anecdotally, but not necessarily in the data at this time.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Cavazos.
Thank you, Madam President, and thank you, Mr. Hartland, Mr. Huffman, and Dr. Scavella for the very thorough briefing that you gave us. And I got some answers to some of the follow-up questions that Mr. Cruz has submitted. So I kind of wanted to touch on that just real briefly. So the first one that I asked was, do we have a measurement of the metrics used to identify how students are feeling psychologically safe versus physically safe? And the answer was no. And I know that we have, in fact, your team just finished talking about that it's not just physical, it is, socio-emotional also. So is there any plan in the future to be able to coordinate or correlate those two factors?
Thank you for the question. In terms of the survey itself, we do know that a lot of these questions have been around since the 2015-2016 school year. And with the change and the direction with the strategic plan, we do want to make sure that as we move forward with the district-wide survey, that the questions align to the things that we would like to look into further and understand a little bit better. That being said, there is an opportunity for us to potentially look at some of the questions and how we phrase those questions moving forward. We're also doing that in alignment with NDE as they do their surveys that are also being pushed out to the staff. So that is a conversation at this point. It hasn't actualized just yet, but that is something that we're looking into.
Thank you, I appreciate that, because I do hear from students sometimes, I would have liked, and usually it's pretty positive, I wish I could have put this down or put that down to give, an answer to that. The second question is almost the same, except it has to do with, is there any place on the survey to have free text responses, to dig a little deeper into the question, because the question is, do you feel connected? And I remember we were at one point, we're much better now, I know that we're going in a better direction, we're looking at the data here, and sometimes we had kids that were saying, I believe, just saying that they didn't even have one person at the school that they were connected with, and now we're getting much better results. So I'm just wondering, and again, also, Mr. Huffman, just kind of maybe that's something maybe to think about for the future, if there's some way that we could kind of integrate that. Because I think that the students really do want to tell us where the good is coming out of their feeling safe. So, last question. Was there a specific reason for the decline in data with the Native American subgroup? And the answer that I received today was no specific reason was identified, but this will be included in our processes for the 2026-2027 school year. Due to the small size of the student group, the decline could be due simply to variability in the responses year over year, which may not be statistically significant. So I'm just wondering if somebody could kind of enlarge upon that a bit.
Thank you again for the question. So again, when we look at the student population of our American Indian Alaska Native students, that number, the population has dropped from 530 students in 2023 down to 454 students in the 2025-2026 school year. So that being said, when we look at the number of percent positive, just in terms of the actual count, the change was 16 students. However, because it was a smaller group of students, those 16 students came up with a larger percentage. So when we're talking about percentages, we do see a larger decline there. But when we're talking about the number of students that might have changed their answer, we're looking at a nominal number there.
Okay. Thank you so much. I might have another question, but I'm going to go ahead and defer to my colleagues, and if I need to, I'll get back in the queue. Thank you so much. We're definitely going in the right direction.
Thank you. Trustee Bustamante Adams.
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you, Superintendent, for the work of your team. I want to address questions on page 17. So here's my 3 questions. One, if you could share how, when COVID was going on, how does that impact this work? Maybe it's not included in the data. Number 2, does that student voice across 15 schools, does that include academic centers? Have they ever been included in the student voice town halls? And then the last one is the collaborative effort system-wide, and who's at the table for that collaborative effort? I'm assuming that it includes local municipalities, but I'm not 100% certain. Thank you.
Trustee Bustamante Adams, thank you for the question. So regarding COVID, so we were careful to make sure when we did the comparative data that was the year after COVID, so we didn't have the data skewed by students being at home. But as we recall, student behaviors were drastically different when we returned. Student needs were drastically differentiated. And so those are things that have been addressed. And I think it started with, as we look at the progress we had here, we hardened the school campuses, single point of entry and the cameras, and improved those things. And then we went into more kind of the heart and minds of students and that connectedness. And that's kind of what we're seeing the fruit of that work here. That we've realized that, how important that connection to adults are, how important that connection, that sense of belonging, being valued and heard and seen in your campus. So that's the work that's been done, and it is the result of what we've seen after COVID. But again, we were careful not to use that data in the comparative here. academic centers, they've not been included in our town halls up to now, but as Superintendent Ebert talked about, diversifying our student voice, and even on her committee, that is also part of our work for next year, is to involve not just academic centers, but all alternative schools and the ESD programs. And then the last question.
Collaborative
Oh.
group.
Thank you, thank you. So, yes, so the School Justice Collaborative, which previously was the School Justice Partnership, as it expanded, we evolved with the name. So it does include municipalities, it does include police departments from the municipalities, looking to expand into Henderson and North Las Vegas. It does include, there's a new department, it is the Family and the Harbor and TPOP have combined into a department, so it has those groups there, as well as juvenile justice and the DA's office, really where we're all working together to make sure how we respond, where we fit in it, and that there's a continuum of communication. So when a school refers a student to the Harbor, that there's some communication back that the student was referred. We don't need, personal information about what that service was, but just that there was a service, and if there's anything that can be brought back to the school, that they could have some continuity of a behavior plan based on what was developed. So those are things that we're looking to develop, as well as when events happen in the community on the weekend, that we have some type of morning meetings where, with law enforcement and school police and our staff at the schools, where we are aware of how that's going to affect the school on that Monday morning. So that's the type of communication that's being fleshed out, and truly it is all hands on deck, and there's nobody that's turned away, but we really have some strong partners that are working together now.
Thank you. And Madam President, one more question, if I could, on that collaborative, can you just share like one thing that you have learned from that group? Because that's a best practice, I think, on a national level, that kind of collaboration. I have not heard that those groups come together to address the young adults. So if you could take one takeaway that you've learned from that group.
Yeah, absolutely. And so we have one very powerful example of a best practice. And so when a student is cited at the school, that triggers a higher level of discipline and removal based on that citation. But with this collaboration, we've worked with the DA's office where they will let us know right away whether that case was diverted to the Harbor, which then we can bring down that level of escalation to handle it differently. Where before, regardless, just that citation meant that student could be out 18 weeks. And so now we've reduced that, and it's just through that communication of they didn't change any of their practices, they just let us know what they were doing in a timely manner. And so it's been a great success both ways, but that was a real powerful one where we started bringing in other groups based on how powerful that was.
Thank you. Trustee Esparza Stoffergen?
Thank you for this very, I would say, comprehensive presentation, and it's been shifting as we've been asking for things in a different way. So I appreciate you guys listening. I will try to start with 3, and then I'll put myself back in the queue. He's smiling. Okay. So I'm curious because of the drop of the 13,000 responses that were not done, and it's relative because a lot of the responses were in the affirmative. So, like what is the process for who is it? How is that being distributed to the kids, and why is there such a significant drop?
Thank you for the question. So with the district-wide survey, we actually start that communication to our sites very early in the school year, just so that they are aware of the timing and all of that. And as I mentioned in the presentation, normally the window is a little bit larger, but due to the other surveys that we did throughout the year, we wanted to make sure that we were prioritizing our efforts. So part of it was that there was a shift in the timing, and we did have a shorter period of time than we typically do. Normally it's about 7 to 8 weeks. This year it was about 4 weeks. That the students had the opportunity to. The other thing that we found was, as we were working with the school sites, there was a little bit of confusion because we did still have some overlap on some of the surveys as to which links were provided for which surveys. So we really worked closely with the school sites on that to try to increase the involvement. We encourage at least 75% of every site to participate, and I know that's been a change over the years. The expectation has shifted a little bit. In the past, there was a participation penalty from the state for certain funding if we didn't achieve a certain percentage. That's no longer the case, but we do still incur 75%. As I mentioned in the presentation, we did extend it a week into January as well, just to try to communicate with some of our schools that did not meet that 75%, just to increase that. So we did move some of those efforts, but there was also a lot of other competing priorities throughout the district at that time as well.
So thank you for that. And then I want to go back to data. You know, if we're having success with implementing MTSS and PBIS, how is that being translated into the data? Because I know that schools have to track minor incidents, major incidents. Are we going to ever get to that level of seeing the data? Just to kind of speak to Trustee Zamora's question of, you know, is it bullying? Is it racially motivated incidents? Is it, you know, threats against the school? You know, I just wonder if we're ever going to have that level of in-depth reporting.
Thank you for the question. So I know from the district-wide survey standpoint, it does run parallel with some of the other things that you brought up. So it does not specifically talk to MTSS, PBIS, or specific events that are occurring on campus. We're kind of looking at the overall perception. As I mentioned before, we're looking at some additional ways because currently it's this occurs, you know, strongly agree, disagree, strongly disagree, and that could be skewed by the experience that a student had that morning, right? If they walked onto campus and they felt that someone was harassing them, they could say, yes, everyone gets bullied on this campus because of that experience on that day. So looking at how we can possibly change that to maybe looking at, yes, this happens frequently, rarely, seldom, often, just to kind of quantify that a little bit better. But again, I don't know that that will necessarily get to the granular part that you're speaking of. But then in addition to that, it's all the quantitative information that they have from the different services and professional learning that they provide as well. So looking at it across the board, we can see some correlations, but the direct pieces are not in place yet.
And if I could just also respond. As you know, I do other presentations as well, and we get into student discipline. And the presentations we've been doing have been based on the previous strategic plan. And now that we have a new strategic plan, we will be able to update the data pieces that we're presenting to you as we work with you to collaborate on that presentation.
It's like Mr. McPartland read our minds. I appreciate that. My last third question, and I'll put myself back. I want to share this because talking about student voice, I was at a dream session at one of our high schools. Students approached me from night school and invited me to go listen to them. It was powerful. It was a powerful conversation. And I think I will go back, but I appreciated when Trustee Zamora questioned about who's at the table for the town halls, because there's so many facets of our community. And I think of also our rural schools. Are we going out to our rural schools? It doesn't even mean in person, maybe virtually too, having conversations with our night schools, their behavior schools, with alternative settings, with Global Community High School, which is our newcomer. So I just think we could expand that piece of it. So I'm curious, Dr. Scavala, those students that were selected, the 30 per 15 sessions, talk about that process, and I'm curious about what kind of high level, what were they saying? What makes them feel secure in their setting?
Trustee, as far as the staff, thank you so much for that question, because that is a really important part of the town hall process, is that we meet with the student, the school leadership team prior to the town halls. We look at the attendance data, we look at the discipline data, we look at bullying, discrimination data. So we look at across the climate of all different type of data sets. And a lot of this is driven by the school administration because they know their school communities. So if they're having issues with a particular like group of level of students or issues with chronic absenteeism or anything like that, then we'll have those discussions when we have in our pre-planning meeting, and we identify like what type of questions should we engage with our students, what students should we bring to the town hall. We want those students who are doing very, very well, the high-performing students. We want the students who are experiencing like mid-range and kind of struggling a little bit. And then we want your high flyers as well. We want those students who are the ones that are, having the most difficulties in school, and we want to make sure that their voices are heard at the student town halls. One thing that we did hear a lot in regards to student perceptions of safety is their relationships with adults. Not just themselves, but their relationships with adults. We always ask the question, what adults are you connected with on this campus? Who has your back? Who can you say you have a meaningful relationship with? At every single town hall, we ask that question. And we're starting to experience that we're getting higher levels of students reporting that they have connections with adults. That is increasing. We do get the silence, we do get the pass, because we do inform the students that they have the choice of passing because their silence speaks volumes as well. So we hear what they don't say and we hear what they do say. And then what's powerful is that the principals, the school administrators, the counselors, other teachers, they're all in the room, all and involved in the student town hall circle process along with the students. So we're hearing the issues that they're having. We make sure that it's a safe place, a safe space for them to talk freely about their concerns. And then after the town hall, that's when we really get a lot of the information once we send out the surveys to the students, and then we survey the staff, and then we're able to have a debrief section, and then we actually look at what action plans and next steps we need to do based on the information that we receive from the students at the town hall. So it's a powerful process, and we are planning on expanding that. You heard from Mr. McPartland about the behavior schools, alternative settings, as well as our rural schools, and also our elementary schools. That's something that we really want to dig into next year.
Thank you. Trustee Johnson.
Yeah, I have 3 questions as well. The first one is about academics. And so my noticing was that across each one of the categories, the students that have the perception of feeling least safe, with the exception of Native American students, are students who are performing or have academically the least amount of growth across, or like proficiency. And so I just wondered, what are we doing to make sure that we can ensure safety and academic achievement go hand in hand? Because I imagine there's some sort of correlation between the two. And then how do we support students to make sure they feel safe, and then in that safety they can grow academically?
Thank you for the question, Trustee Johnson. So 100%, it's the reason why we do this survey and we do the presentation, right? That students can't learn if they don't feel safe. And the correlation is not lost on the levels of students, kind of matches the academic progress that we have overall as a district. And so that's why so important the work that we do with the schools after the survey, right? Causing the schools to reflect on their practices, doing the TFI inventory to get into, to really dig into what's behind those student responses that's leading to that. And then also moving towards the classroom, right? We also find student removals are highest in some of those student groups, right? So it's all correlated, and just that reflections and the fact that it's part of the school improvement plan for every school, it's part of the supervisory conferences. So this is just one piece of that process to get to that root cause.
That's helpful, thank you. And then the second question that I had was, as you touched on it a second ago, but is there a bit of a follow-up and like with focus groups within those subgroups to really maybe hone in on some of the things that that they might say are making them feel most unsafe, so that we might be able to rectify? So, for example, if we're looking at Black students who are saying they feel most unsafe, is there a mechanism to follow up with a subgroup of Black students across the district to say, what is it about your school experience that makes you feel unsafe, and then how can we help make you feel safer?
Trustee Johnson, that's a great suggestion, a great recommendation. I don't think we have any mechanisms in place as a district. I know we work with community partners where we are, receiving feedback from specific student groups, but maybe not internally, and that might be a good next step for us to take it from groups as we work with, like My Brother's Keeper, and to bring that into our own processes as well. So I appreciate that feedback.
Appreciate it. Thank you. All right, and the last one, I'm going to apologize in advance because I'm going to do a little bit of a pop culture. But on slide 18, and part of what I consistently think about with this is when we talk about perception, and then these numbers are tangible, right? And so sometimes I get confused because tangible facts and then perception is subjective, right? But when I also look at these numbers, I recognize that there's a decline in some of the hard stats that would make me feel unsafe if I were in a school space. And so one of my favorite TV shows is The Wire. And if you remember in season 3 of The Wire, for any of my Wire fans, you know, Bunny Colvin, he would go to his CommStats and they would juke the stats. You know, he's like, we can turn this into a that. And I'm not saying that any of this is happening. What I'm asking, though, is because some of these things might be subject or could be labeled as subjective, right? Like, if I was a principal and I knew that I needed to make sure that we had fewer incidents of bullying, maybe I said one thing, might have said looked like bullying last year. It doesn't look like bullying this year. Is there an objective third party who verifies, hey, look, no matter what this incidence is, bullying is this, and no matter what, so that number, we know we can verifiably then go back to our student body and say, I recognize that you might feel unsafe, and we are reducing the numbers of bullying, and we know that because, you know, these numbers are like hard numbers that are true to our campus, versus we all have we have an incentive to make sure that these numbers go down. And not to say that anybody is doing anything nefarious, but we want to see them go down. And if they're subjective, we could lean on the side of, well, maybe that's not bullying this year because we want to make sure that they go down. So the question, I guess, is ultimately, is there an objective third party who can verify some of these stats so that when we talk to our students, we can tell them definitively, these numbers are going down. And yes, we recognize your perception, and these hard stats are reducing so that hopefully you feel safer on your campus. That was a long way to get to I think, a really short one. But I never thought I might be able to talk about The Wire in the school board meeting ever again. So I wanted to do it today. That's right. You take it one time, man. You get one shot.
So thank you for the question, Trustee Johnson. And that leads into our new legislative Assembly Bill 48, which actually gives principals the authority to actually look into the reported incidents and identify if these incidents, if a violation has likely occurred or not likely occurred. If it is likely occurred, then the principal is required to do the full investigation. If it's not likely occurred, the principal is still required to address the behavior, but maybe through the code of conduct or established disciplinary process. However, we have built in secondary protocols and appeals process. So if a parent submits a bullying or a student submits a bullying, and it comes back that that bullying is unsubstantiated as though it is not bullying or is not discrimination based on race or religion or what have you, then they have 2 steps that they can take. They can first meet with the school administrator to review the investigation process and identify as to why the administrator came up with those conclusions. And then they also can appeal the investigation. And then once the appeal process is implemented, then there's a next level appeal process after that. Within 30 days after we hear the appeal on the district level, then the parent has the right to appeal to the Nevada Department of Education Office for Safe and Respectful Learning Environments as well. So they have 30 days to appeal there. So then, so there's 2 different mechanisms that if you say that this is not bullying, then as a parent or as a community care for that student, I can appeal that, and you would have to show your documentation as to why this aligns or doesn't align with NRS either 122 for bullying, 1235 for discrimination, or 123 for cyberbullying. And those secondary and third protocols help us to be able to validate that these incidents are reported incidents as violations of the NRS, or they are not violations, but they're still behavior infractions that need to be addressed.
That's really helpful. Thank you for that. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Trustee Henry.
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you all for the presentation. I wanted to ask you, since you did bring it up, my brother's keeper, I did write that down in my notes. Will we have more of a presence with those meetings? I've been recently, and I don't know that the district has had a strong presence with my brother's keeper as of late.
Thank you for the question, Trustee Henry. We actually serve as co-chairs of My Brother's Keeper. We work very closely with the City of Las Vegas, so we have consistent meetings every month, every 2 weeks. So there's a high level of presence there. We collaborate on the agenda items. We have work group breakout sessions, and through the Office of Safe for Respectful Learning Environments and Opportunities, we work as the liaison for the district to co-lead those meetings and those initiatives. One initiative that we're working on right now very intently is to ensure that we have a broad spectrum of a mentorship program, because that's something that's really, really needed across the district. So we are actually working with CCEA as well, Dr. Pearson, and we will be meeting very shortly, follow-up to identify what our next steps are for implementing that initiative. So we do have a very present and great consistent working relationship with My Brother's Keeper.
Okay, thank you so much. And I had questions around, I got my notes. For the Superintendent Student Advisory Council, how will we ensure that there are no barriers in attendance for the students, especially as we branch out into our night schools, our alternative schools, but also those students from lower socioeconomic statuses that have transportation barriers? How will we ensure that they can attend?
Thank you, Trustee Henry, for that question. That actually transpired during this school year as well, so it's not just into the future, but making sure, because there's 2 students at a minimum from each school. So making sure, hey, did you even talk to each other first in getting there? And then also making sure that they have, in other instances, bus passes and other opportunities to make sure that they can attend.
Thank you so much, Superintendent. And last question. I know that students have reported having, a safe space or person on campus and having that sense of belonging. But I also know that there were some positions that will not be offered at schools this upcoming year, like safe school professionals and some counselors. How will we work to ensure that we keep those gains and that safety for those students?
Absolutely. Trustee Henry, thank you for the question. So, yeah, very, very cognizant of, the number of schools and the levels of mental health support and counselor support at them. As a district, I'll speak to wraparound. I don't supervise counselors, but in wraparound services, we do have some central support teams, and they're really strategizing of these schools that don't have these positions. How do we train up staff that is there? How do we provide support centrally from the outside? So it is part of our plans, for sure, and very cognizant of that staffing level.
I appreciate you all.
Thank you. Trustee Satori.
Thank you very much for that presentation. A couple of questions. So first of all, fantastic to see the increase in restorative justice practices and the professional development to be able to implement it correctly. So that's wonderful work. Thank you. So when I'm looking at the data, though, the results are a collective of those 4 questions, correct? And so when I'm looking, I was kind of thinking, to myself, well, the outcome, the response, I guess, to if the safety procedures that my school has safety procedures that work versus sometimes I stay home because I don't feel safe, kind of tell you 2 very different things. So I just wanted for clarification, if you could just kind of speak to that the principals and the schools receive that broken down data, by their specific school, and then how that's, Dr. Scavella, you had mentioned like the planning for next year and how this data is utilized. So can you kind of speak to how they're utilizing their specific data and these questions more drilled down than what we received?
Thank you for the question, Trustee Satori. So in terms of the breakdown, the results, and these are public results, so they're actually on our website as well. You can go in by school and see the responses per school, and you'll actually see it for the last 3 years as well. So when the principals get that, they get their specific information aggregated for the entire school, but for that specific question, so that they can look and see which questions they might need to drill into more, or maybe have those follow-up conversations with students. And again, those are offered at the student level, region, municipality level, and the district level.
Excellent, thank you. And one additional question. I had a question about how many schools, and I may have asked this before, but I can't recall, have vape detectors. I know I've just seen a lot of studies about how even going to the restroom sometimes can present such anxiety for students, and schools that have had those, it's really been very positive on school culture. And I would assume that's a site-based decision, but do we have many of our schools that have them in place?
Trustee Satori, thank you for the question. So I am aware that through some different departments in the school, where the Juul settlement, and we are looking to come up with strategic ways to spend some of that money, including vape sensors. We do have some schools that have piloted. We have some schools that even did some purchasing out of their site funds to implement that as a pilot. So that is part of the strategies being developed with that Juul settlement money at this time.
Excellent, yeah. Thank you.
Trustee Biassatti.
Thank you, Madam President. And thank you for the presentation. My concern is with how perception translates into reality. Because you had presented to us before that there has been an uptick in violence in our middle schools. So I would like to know how this survey can be used as a tool to address that.
Absolutely. So thank you for the question. And that does align with our other presentations that we do. And so middle school, as you talked about, last year when we presented at the end of the year, we saw that uptick, especially in the fourth quarter last year, in high-level behaviors. Our targeted approach was to wrap those schools with services from multiple departments, whether it's guidance and counseling, Dr. Scavella's department, mine, guidance and counseling, MTSS, just really coming in and evaluating what the needs of that school are, looking at the root causes, what might be behind that data. And so we ended up working with 13 schools this year. The 13 that had some of the highest levels that we saw. We're very, I want to make sure to give kudos to those principals and those teams. They were very open to accepting our guidance and our support, and it varied from school. There were some schools where they had a great number of first and second year teachers in their classrooms, so they needed support, came through our RPDP department, the state's RPDP department, where they would get classroom management training, right? For their teachers. We had some schools that really, it was more about, they weren't doing clear expectations for students in a way that students could receive what the behavior expectations were. So we kind of put some of those things in place through MTSS. So we did that work. In those schools, we saw a 45% drop in escalated behaviors and suspensions, and with 2 schools that had 80% reductions. And so I think it did align, and I think that's what shows in the middle school data, where they saw the increase in safety. So it goes hand in hand, the discipline we see and the student responses, and I think the middle school level was definitely addressed this year.
Okay, thank you for that. And I did have a follow-up question, Dr. Scavella, because you were talking about the implementation and how more widespread it is of the restorative practices. Do we have the data to stack up side by side of where we are now with discipline as opposed to where we were in 2018 before the implementation of restorative justice? And I know, and I do want to point out, this was a measure by the previous Superintendent Jara, and we all know how well he did with his leadership. So I want to know that this is actually something that's working and is better than what we had. Thank you.
Thank you for the question, Trustee Biassatti. Back in 2021, and I think we touched on it a little bit in the presentation, when we implemented restorative approaches and restorative practices, we were utilizing about 2,900 restorative approaches, and we didn't see really that much of a decrease in our discipline data that we're seeing now. So a lot of the training went to ensuring that our schools have restorative leadership team. They got the 13-hour training We extended that training to ensure that one person on those teams at those schools went through the extensive training so they can come back and pretty much like a trainer-trainer model and attend another 20 hours of training so that they did that and went back to the schools. And then we saw the numbers of usage of restorative approaches to address those behaviors start to increase. Just this year, we increased. Last year, we were at about 28,000 restorative approaches that we utilized. This year, we're over 31,000. We noticed that every year we've had about 17,000 or a little more of reported incidents of discrimination based on race bullying and cyberbullying. This year, matter of fact, last year it was 17,880 reported incidents. This year, our reported incidents were down to 15,511. So we saw a 13% decrease. And again, we're doing a much better job of investigating, as I was speaking to Trustee Johnson's question, of investigating those incidents. So we are seeing that we're doing a better job with teaching and reinforcing the behaviors we expect on campuses and addressing these behaviors and using those restorative approaches so that students understand the impact of their behaviors. If they understand the impact of their behaviors, and now we have parents and families that are able to come together and in situations where there was conflict before they were not coming together, then we're seeing less recidivism, less students who are repeating those type of behaviors. So that's why we're seeing such a decrease in our training, our monthly training, and our school-wide training has greatly increased in regards to the restorative approaches. So that's some of the things that have contributed to that data to ensure that you know, these approaches, these behaviors are decreasing, and it's not just as a result of incidents not being reported.
Trustee Biasotti, thank you for that question. I do understand. I think looking at the behaviors that are on slide 18, I hear you asking for pre-COVID numbers for that compared to these.
Well, more than pre-COVID, pre-restorative discipline. And do we have the answer to that? The question was, how does it stack up to that data?
I don't have that data with me from 2018, but I do note the question, and I can work on that.
I would like to see it, I think. Well,
Okay.
thank you.
And also, prior to the Assembly Bill 71, 371 and 2021, that's when restorative approaches became law. That's when it became mandated. Prior to that, I came to the district in 2019 as a school associate superintendent. There were no restorative practices that were required. So we'll definitely have to go back and get that data, but I'm sure we can present that data to you.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
So I see that I have colleagues in the queue that this would be their second time around, so before I hand it over, I have some questions myself, specifically around the data, because I'm trying to understand it, because there's, on page 2, there's reference material. There's a link. And when I click on the link, I know it's from years past, that data. Is it the same survey questions? Like, are the survey questions there the same? Like, are we keeping that consistent for consistent data purposes?
Thank you for the question. So majority of those questions have stayed the same since 2015.
Okay, and so then the question becomes, since this is about student perception of safety, are we looking at the survey as a whole, or are we just looking at the 8 questions under school safety?
Thank you for the question. So for the purpose of this presentation, we were looking at those 8 specific questions.
Okay.
As mentioned previously, the perceptions of student safety were also part of a previous strategic plan for Focus 2024, which is why those particular ones have been used. This year, we added in the student connectedness in preparation for developing the strategic plan. So that's where we're using those. Again, we do have whole overall district components. However, the content areas are so varied that if we just look at a single score, it doesn't give you a good picture.
Okay.
But I do, to your point of principals receiving the data and planning and making adjustments in their school, they receive all the question responses, not just these 4.
Okay. All right, so I want to understand it as best as I can so that I know how I'm asking the right questions. So if I look at some of these questions, that when I click on it, we have some questions that are negatively focused, so then depending on the response would depend on how that data looks, right? So I sometimes stay home because I don't feel safe at this school. All right, so and then it just shows a percentage. So is that percentage young people who said, is it our students that said, yes, that's true, or no, I don't stay at home?
Thank you for the question. So on slide 4, this is a perfect example. I sometimes stay at home because I don't feel safe at this school. That data is reversed on the question, so the percent positive represents the students that responded negatively. So they would disagree or strongly disagree on that particular type of
So the
question.
measurement is based on positive outcome, essentially?
Correct.
Okay,
Yes.
that's what I want to know. All right, so if we're looking at that, my next question would be, in the answer part, is it just like a yes or no? Is there a neutral? Because when I look at the data from a broader perspective, it looks like about 80%, if we were to average it out, is saying, I feel safe, right? So then you have the other 20%. Is it that they just completely do not feel safe? Or do those numbers represent other answers? Like, is there a neutral? Do you understand what I'm saying? When I'm looking at the measurement of how we come up with these numbers.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for the question. So the student responses currently are strongly agree, disagree, and strongly disagree. So when we talk about the percent positive, we're looking at the agree and strongly disagree, but we don't differentiate based off of that particular level when sharing out the data. If schools have questions about their specific data and they want to drill in a little bit more to the disagrees versus the strongly disagrees, we can provide that information essentially. But for the purpose of the report, just to not overcomplicate it, we do put it in the yes, in the positive or negative, and then we report out the positive results.
So the 80% is the agree and strongly agree.
Correct.
And then the 20% is disagree and strongly disagree.
Correct.
Okay, that helps me a lot. Thank you. Okay, so in understanding that a little bit more, one of the challenges that was mentioned in the slides was that the belief is that social media plays a role in the negative feelings, as well as outside events. And so I think my question for that is, where did that data come from? Because when I look at these 8 questions, I don't see anything asking about social media or the off. So is there a section where they get to write this down and there was an overall consensus that, for the most part, that's what it was? Like, where did that data come from?
So a lot of this, the social media data, when we did our town halls, we got a lot of information from students as far as where the core of or the root cause of these issues are coming in from. So we noticed that social media played a major role in some of these behaviors, some of the perceptions that students have, and especially with the younger students in our town halls. So again, that information was very consistent, and then those concerns were clearly brought out in those conversations.
And just for clarity, and when it comes to the survey itself, there are no open text fields or anything like that. So it does just give us that quantitative data to then have the conversations within the town halls.
You read my mind. That was going to be my next question. Thank you. Last question, and it's unrelated to the data. Earlier, you mentioned a partnership with a school justice partnership. Is there, do we also include any community partners in that partnership?
Thank you for the question. Yes, we do have community partners. Some of the community partners, it varies based on the topics that we're going over that month on that agenda. But absolutely, we do have City of Las Vegas and Dr. Malich is involved and her team. We do have different groups that we've had. We've had Boys Town and communities and schools come. So it is a varied group. But as we've moved forward, really trying to work on the communication, it's been centered more on those community partners that we discussed earlier, but they are invited.
Okay, thank you. That concludes my questions. You guys are great. Thank you for this presentation. I'll turn it over to, I do see a trustee on here who has not spoken yet. Are you guys okay if I allow this person to go? Yeah, Trustee Dominguez.
Thank you, Madam President, and thank you for the presentation. And I'll admit I was really frustrated when I was seeing this because I feel like this presentation is based on a lot of feelings and not like as much fact, right? And it's hard to navigate feelings versus actual data and numbers. So I share that frustration. But I wanted to go into, so my district has, and we just went through graduations. We did 3 in incarcerations, 3 prisons. And then I have Spring Mountain in my district, and I see a lot of students, a lot of kids, and we took a tour of the juvenile detention center of just students that are just going down the wrong path. And whatever that may be, I'm wondering how we can, what other professional learning can we give to our administrators or educators to identify students that are involved in gangs, students that are involved in maybe there's the activity happening off campus. How can we empower our educators and our administrators to identify that?
Thank you for the trustee Dominguez, and thank you for coming to all the events with our alternative schools. I appreciate it, and all the trustees that made it to the events. So that is 100% the direction we are moving in. Is yes, we want to make sure when students are in there that we have transition services and specialists that are transitioning students out of those situations as they come back, but also avoiding that before by being proactive. And so we have a pilot through the School Justice Partnership that has 9 schools that we're working with, 4 in your area, actually. It is Cimarron, Arborview, Centennial, and Peterson Academic Center. And that's exactly what we're working on, is how can we get information of what's occurring in the community, the behaviors that are occurring we see in school versus what they're seeing, as an example, in Tapestry up by, Peterson. And so that's exactly what this pilot, which we just began the first session of professional learning, which was school police kind of sharing their role, and then we'll go through each of the steps and then how we can best work on it. So that is 100% the direction we're going.
That's great. Good to hear. I wanted to ask more about like the professional learning for our principals. So for identifying gang, signia or even verbiage, or when kids go into the bathroom and tag something on the walls, how are we training our principals to see that and to identify that as a gang versus that's just a number 21?
Yeah, thank you for the question. I apologize for not being specific. So absolutely the gang units are involved, and it's not just the principal, it's the principal, the AP, the counselors, the campus monitors, all those people that might see those behaviors and see those things in the school. So that is part of those look-fors to try, yeah, so that is absolutely part of this. And we'll pilot this out with the goal of expanding it out to all schools once we refine those processes here.
That's great to hear. Thank you for that one. And just really for the last, for students, I know they have Safe Voice to go to. Where do our parents go to if they see, a behavior in their student that's maybe they're disengaged, or maybe they're being bullied, or maybe they're the bully, or whatever may be? What is the avenue for our parents?
Yeah, so absolutely. So parents use Safe Voice exceedingly as much as students. I don't have that data, so let me not say that, but parents use it, as well as contacting the school directly. They're contacting through some of the processes we have as a district for parents to express concerns. But we receive a number of concerns from parents. Even if it's not their student, I saw this at dismissal while I was picking up my kids. So those occur many times every day at all the schools.
No, it's great to hear for our parents. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Cavazos.
Thank you, Madam President. Just a couple of things here, easy ones. So you were talking about going into the elementary schools and doing the town hall format. What grades will that be that you'll be starting with, and will they be handled the same way as the middle and the high schools?
Absolutely, and thank you for the question, Trustee Cavazos. We've done some town halls in elementary schools, and we've even done town halls with our families and parents after school hours. So we would definitely continue to have pre-town hall meetings with the school administration to really look at the data and identify where those gaps are and where the areas of concerns are, and then go into pre-planning the questions as to the question prompts that we're going to use during the town hall. It's not rigid, but it gives us an idea of how to start the conversations in order to identify where those areas that we want to address or we want to hear the student voice in those specific areas. So it would definitely be fifth grade, looking at fifth grade, in third grade, more between third and fifth grade, we will begin there. And then if there, how that goes, and we might work our way down to the earlier grades as well.
Thank you so much. And I know when my colleague, Trustee Bustamante Adams, was asking about the collaborative group, I was taking notes. I think I missed one little part of there when you were mentioning who was involved. Are licensed and education support professionals, are they included in any of those facets? This is coming from a constituent that didn't hear.
Yes, absolutely. We have everyone from the school police officers to our teachers, our licensed educators. We even had some, I would say, office staff that attended. We had professional, paraprofessionals, teachers' aide, and all type of different, our campus security monitors have attended some of our town halls. We even had our school nurses. So we go across the whole gamut. We even had some voices from our cafeteria food service workers that have attended some of our town halls.
Thank you so much. It sounds like it's been very inclusive. I'm really proud of the direction we're going in, the work that you and your team, all the team is doing. And it's just, even when you were given the answer having to do about the restorative practices, promoting this this very supportive and inclusive environment that's very equitable and promotes the diversity in our district. And I so appreciate that so much. Thank you.
Trustee Esparza Stofferkin.
Actually, Dr. Scavella, you answered a question of mine with how families are engaged. And so I think that's the level of its necessity. It's like a non-negotiable. Our families have funds of knowledge about their children that nobody else knows. And we should be co-creators in their, in the process with them. Huffman, did I say it right? Yes. Okay. Mr. Huffman, so you mentioned NDE. NDE provides surveys to districts. And I'm wondering, are we using their survey too, or is this a survey outside of this survey?
Thank you for the question. So just this last year, in the most recent legislative session, there was a bill that was pushed through regarding staff surveys. And so this last year was the first time that Clark County School District participated in the social emotional staff survey.
Okay.
And those actually alternate. So the social emotional survey occurs on odd number years, and then the working conditions survey will be on even years. So we'll have those staff surveys, but currently it's only for the staff side of things. Our student and our family surveys are still going to be what
Internal.
we currently have with the district-wide survey. Great,
So we're capturing all levels. Our staff feeling safe, our students feeling safe, and that's something that the state doesn't do with students.
The state does offer that, but currently we are still doing that internally, just because we'll have longevity in terms of our data.
Data collection, so it's parallel. Okay, my next, I know my colleagues are going to love this so much. Superintendent, we get a lot of training, and it's really, I think, been really valuable for us to be able to, as we're moving forward, to do our strategic plan and set up our metrics and our measures, especially for this. Could you consider, and it could be a conversation, for us to receive some kind of MTSS, PBIS, maybe some restorative practices, training, especially knowing we're going to have to set some new metrics and measures with the new plan for looking up in the next 5 years.
Seeing nobody else in the queue, I think that concludes our discussion, and this is is this an action item? I don't believe it is. No, it is not. So thank you so much. Appreciate you guys. That will close out 3.01. Before I open 4.01, is there anyone who did not get a chance to fill out a public speaker card? This is your opportunity to turn it in, because I'm going to close it out in a second. Yeah, we have you. Yeah. Well, not necessarily. So it's a good question. So just to inform the public, the way that public comment works in our meetings is you can fill out a public comment card to speak directly on an action item that we're discussing that is on the agenda. And then you can also sign up to speak during what we call, and in the agenda today, it's 5.01, which is items not on, is that right? Is it 5.01? Yeah. Public comment on items not listed on the agenda. So you technically have time to fill out a public comment card to speak on that. If you're already signed up for that time, then you only get those 3 minutes. If you want to use those 3 minutes to speak on multiple items, that's fine, but you have 3 minutes. All right, sounds good. So for this item, 4.01, I'm going to close the opportunity to take on more cards. So no more cards are going to be taken for 4.01. Okay? Thank you. All right, let's go ahead and open up 4.01, 2027 legislative bill
point of-
draft. Yes.
Is it not point of order? I just have a clarifying question.
Yes, ma'am.
I know previously we have had things for possible action, like presentations like this, and we've had a motion that says, I make a motion to accept this presentation, and then we have voted on it previously.
You're actually right on this. It does not say, it does say for possible action. It's highlighted in my script. I couldn't
So I can
find it.
make a
You're right.
motion, and then we can do public comment on this.
Yeah, so
Okay.
we're going to open up 3.01 again, and we're going to vote on it.
So I want to make a motion, President,
Yes,
to accept the presentation per perceptions of student safety.
that is fine. That's great. Do I have a second? Trustee Cavazos?
I will second that.
We have a second. Let's vote. Let's vote. Motion passes. Okay, again, public comment cards for 4.01. We're going to close that out so that we can open 4.01, and I'll turn it over to Ms. Kirsten Sear for the presentation. Thank you.
Good evening, Madam President, trustees, and Superintendent Ebert. My name is Kirsten Sear, and I serve as the Chief Community Engagement Officer for the Clark County School District. Thank you for the opportunity to discuss preliminary legislative priorities and bill draft request ideas for the 2027 legislative session. Over the course of the last year, we have gathered feedback from trustees, district staff, community partners, and legislative stakeholders regarding issues that may warrant legislative consideration in 2027. Joining me this evening are Dr. Bradley Keating, Associate Superintendent of Government and Community Engagement, and Nick Ciccone, Executive Director of Government Relations, both of which are CCSD alums, we always like to say. Tonight's discussion is intended to help begin narrowing down the list of potential priorities so staff can conduct additional research and bring refined recommendations back to you later this summer. Since the conclusion of the 2025 legislative session, our team has spent considerable time evaluating, I'm sorry. Oh, I did, okay. Sorry. Since the conclusion of the 2025 legislative session, our team has spent considerable time evaluating new legislation, identifying implementation challenges, and gathering feedback on potential areas where statutory changes may benefit students, schools, and district operations. Tonight, we are not asking the board to select final bill draft requests. Rather, we are seeking guidance on which concepts you would like the staff to continue researching and refining. So with that, I will turn it over to Mr. Saccone to provide an overview of the ideas that have emerged from these discussions.
Good evening, Madam President, trustees, and Superintendent Ebert. My name is Nick Saccone, and I serve as the Executive Director of Government Relations and Public Policy for the Clark County School District. The ideas we're going over again tonight are based on feedback we received post the 2025 legislative section and reflect both operational needs and broader strategic priorities for the district. Before discussing those specific priorities, I want to go over the overall timeline again. Although the legislature will not convene until February 2027, much of the work occurs well in advance. Since the end of the last session, we've collected feedback from district departments, trustees, education partners, and stakeholders while evaluating lessons from recent legislation. Today's discussion represents another important milestone in that process as we begin narrowing the list of potential priorities and identifying the concepts that warrant further research and consideration. Over the next few months, we will continue engaging with the board, both potential bill draft requests and the broader legislative platform. Tonight is the second formal step in that process, and we look forward to your feedback and guidance as we work toward developing CCSD's legislative priorities for the 2027 legislative session. Before discussing those priorities, I think it's important to go over that timeline again. Although we began covering the bill draft request idea shortly after that 2025 session. Are you advancing the slides? Sorry. Okay. And have continued those discussions through the interim period. We've collected feedback from everyone, and today's discussion represents another step in that process. Over the next several months, we will continue engaging the board regarding both potential bill draft requests and the broader legislative platform. Looking ahead, our goal is to return to the board sometime in August with additional analysis and recommendations regarding the priorities you identified tonight. Under Nevada law, bill draft requests must be submitted to the Legislative Counsel Bureau no later than September 1, 2026. Following that submission, staff will continue developing the district's legislative platform, which we anticipate bringing to the board for adoption in December. The legislative platform is critical because during session, we are frequently asked to respond to proposed amendments and emerging legislation with very little notice, sometimes minutes or hours. Having an adopted platform allows us to respond quickly, remaining aligned with the board's priorities and directives. As we evaluate these potential legislative priorities, staff uses several key considerations. First and foremost are the priorities of this board. We also consider feedback from district staff who would ultimately be responsible for implementing any of those changes. Fiscal impact is another important consideration, particularly given the current economic outlook. Additionally, we assess the political viability and capacity, recognizing that not every good idea is likely to gain sufficient support during a legislative session. Ultimately, staff recommendations are developed by balancing all of these factors. The concepts you identified tonight will undergo additional analysis before we return in August with more detailed information. With that overview, I'll turn it over to Dr. Keating to discuss statewide education priorities.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Brad Keating for the record. Before we discuss specific bill drafts requests this evening, I wanted to briefly highlight the legislative priorities that have been developed by the Nevada Association of School Superintendents, or as I call NASP, because the other word's too long. While NASP does not submit its own bill draft request, these priorities help guide statewide conversations among school districts and provide an important framework as we develop CCSD's legislative platforms. Throughout the development process, CCSD staff has actively participated and provided input on these priorities. The priorities will be presented to the Interim Education Committee on June 16th. And then on June 25th, we will ask this board to also consider a resolution supporting the broader INVEST education priorities. Every school district in the state is asking the boards to adopt a resolution to support the NAS framework. The 4 key priority areas within the NAS platform are increasing and better aligning education funding so resources more accurately reflect student needs, refining Senate Bill 460 for the 2025 session to improve everything that we're doing to improve the legislation as it moves forward. Strengthen early literacy supports without harmful student retention requirements. And 4, stabilize, align, and expand pre-kindergarten structures to improve access and sustainability across Nevada. As we evaluate potential CCSD legislative priorities, you'll notice significant alignment between many of our ideas and these statewide priorities. The list before you and up on the screen for the public's availability represents ideas generated through conversations with trustees, district departments, legislative stakeholders, and community partners. These concepts range from operational issues and funding concerns to student services, transportation, facilities, and governance matters. Rather than reviewing every item in detail tonight, our goal is to identify which concepts warrant additional research and consideration. The list includes charter school management, municipality reporting requirements, pre-K literacy and literacy funding, special education funding, standards-based grading, state budgeting process improvements, refinements through bills, transportation, job order contracting, local control of facilities, and school traffic safety recommendations. Each of these ideas presents different opportunities and challenges that staff will further evaluate. As staff reviewed these ideas, we considered several factors. First, we looked at broader legislative themes emerging from the 2025 session, as well as current interim discussions. Second, we evaluated the economic outlook. Based on current projections, state revenues appear relatively flat, which could limit opportunities for large new funding initiatives. Third, we considered political capacity and viability. While many conversations with legislative leaders are still ongoing due to election-related activities, early discussions suggest significant interest in topics such as Senate Bill 460 implementation and tweaks, pre-K funding, and transportation flexibility. Finally, stakeholder engagement will continue throughout the summer as we gather additional feedback and refine all of the recommendations we bring to you. While some proposals may face challenges as standalone bills, portions of those concepts could potentially be incorporated into larger legislative efforts. With that, I'll turn it back to Mr. Ciccone.
Thank you, Dr. Keating. Over the past several weeks, staff had the opportunity to meet individually with each trustee to better understand your priorities and concerns. We greatly appreciate the time and thoughtful feedback each of you were able to provide. Based on those conversations, we identified several recurring themes and areas of interest that emerged across multiple discussions. Those ideas are reflected here and will help inform tonight's conversation as we begin narrowing the list. From those conversations, we saw a lot of overlap in those high-level priorities. And I'm happy to say that there were a top 6 that were ranked or included as amongst those top priorities. The first being special education funding, the second being pre-K and early childhood innovative literacy program funding, retention of local controls of facilities, school traffic safety working group recommendations, state budget process updates, and standard-based grading. And now I'll hand it over to Kirsten Searer.
Thank you, Dr. Keating and Mr. Ciccone. At this time, we would like to open up discussion to the board. Again, our goal this evening is not to select final bill draft requests, but rather to identify the concepts you would like staff to continue researching and refining. As trustees discuss the options, staff will be available to answer questions and provide clarification as needed. We will also display the complete list of potential priorities to support your discussion.
Thank you. So with that, team, we're going to open this up to discussion. We do have some public comment on this item, so we won't entertain motions right away. But the way that we're going to do this, just so you're aware, after we have our discussion, we're going to try to narrow this down to anywhere from 3 to 6. Okay, so the way that we'll do that is after public comment, and we've had our discussion, if there is a priority that is a big deal for you, you can hop on here and make a motion. Somebody seconds, then we'll vote on it. And we'll just go down the line like that, okay, until we have our core ones that we agree on as a board. These are our important ones. Yes, sir.
Making sure I'm clear, we're going to do all 12 that way, or the 6 that they named that way?
The 6, we don't,
I just wanted to make, all
Yeah,
right, perfect, thank you.
and it might be that we end up getting through 12 because the board doesn't vote, doesn't vote through the ones that were brought in first. It just depends. But it's the will of the board, so we'll make the motions and we'll go in that process, okay? So for now, I want to open it up for discussion so we can talk through some of these things, maybe things that are really important to you, maybe things that you think that could be done differently, whatever. So we're just going to open it up. Trustee Dominguez.
Thank you, Madam President. I wrote my mine down, and then I was trying to follow you, so if you can go one more time really slowly, I'm so sorry.
Thank you very much for the question, Trustee Dominguez. The list of the top 6 priorities in order, based on our conversations that we had individually, was special education funding at number 1. Number 2, pre-K and early childhood innovative literacy program funding. Retention of the local control of facilities by the school board. School traffic safety work group recommendations. State budget process updates. And then 6 standard-based grading changes.
Thank you. And then, sorry, I wanted to make sure I got that. I guess this might be a request to the superintendent is just, I know we have a lot of partners that we work with, and I know we listed the Nevada Association of School Superintendents here, which I appreciate their priorities. I would love to see the other, I mean, we don't necessarily have to maybe put it on there on the slides or whatever, but if we got that in the newsletter or some form of information where their priorities are, where they're at also, I would definitely appreciate that. So thank you.
Okay. No? Okay. Trustee Bustamante Adams.
Thank you, Madam President. My question is on page 6. So where it says number 3, strengthen early literacy support without harmful student retention requirements. Can you expand on that? I just want to make sure I understand what that means to NAS.
That's okay. Kirsten Sear for the record. Dr. Keating will fill in where needed. So there is a concern about the current 3rd grade retention provision in state law. And the superintendents as a whole believe that retention in 3rd grade is not always the best option for ensuring literacy proficiency. So it would be reevaluating that particular portion of the law.
Okay, thank you. And then my other question has to do on page 9. So you mentioned it earlier, Dr. Keating, is the fact that the Economic Forum reported last month, we are relatively flat. I mean, there's 60 million, which could be like 6 cents in the magnitude of our state budget. So you're going to have to take it from somewhere else and some other entity, whether it be elderly or, I don't know, but we're gonna have to swap it. It's not gonna come in unless our revenue increases. And so my question, and 2 of these have to do with funding, and I think that we need to make a claim for funding, but it's going to take our entire state in order to get across the finish line like we did with the people-centered funding. And so I just want to tell my colleagues that yeah, we could keep saying we want additional funding, but the revenue is flat. We would have to take it from somewhere else, whether it be maybe Medicaid or somewhere, but it's not going to grow. So I want to make sure that we make the statement, but if we put it as 2 of our BDRs, I'm not sure if we're going to be able to get it across the line. It's going to be bigger than us. So that's just my comment. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Zamora.
Thank you, Madam President. My question, so pre-K we know is going to be a hot topic, I think, all throughout the state. And I see it, NAS already has it as a priority. Can you kind of explain a little bit what our difference would be if we prioritize pre-K on our end compared to others?
Yeah, thank you for the question, Trustee Zamora. Nick Saccone for the record. I think that's a great question. I think it's important that we also prioritize as a board whatever we think is worthwhile pursuing, whether it's in the form of a bill draft request or it's part of the legislative platform. So to me, that means that my staff time, Brad's staff time, when we're up at session, is advocating on behalf of those causes. So even if there are other stakeholders that have the exact same priorities as us, it takes a village. And so that additional support and help from the school district, the state's largest school district, might be helpful to NAS.
I have a follow-up question. I do not know who it goes towards. I think it might be our president. So we have seen in the past that pre-K, was thrown into other bills, right? How would we handle that situation if we do prioritize pre-K? Let's say our BDR does not make it. It gets inputted somewhere else. How do we, go about that, about supporting or not supporting, or kind of going into details and making sure we're at the table with those conversations?
Yeah, so we would be working very closely together to make sure, as we heard earlier, how a bill becomes a law. In those, in those committees, wherever that pre-K may land, whatever bill it may land in, when those committees are discussing them, even though it is no longer our bill, I would hope that the team is still there advocating, and that we're working together to make sure that the voice is heard. That to Nick's point, being the largest school district in the state, that we still have a voice, even if that priority gets put in another bill.
Thank you. I'm just curious because it is a important topic. It's not just a hot topic for us. It's important, right? We want to expand this. We know how important pre-K is. I don't want it to be used as a bargaining chip up there. And I think that's what I just want to remind everyone. Like, this is not going to be a bargaining chip for us. Like, this is a priority, hopefully. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Cavazos.
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you, team, for bringing these to us and to spending time with each of us individually to hear our priorities. I wanted to ask kind of an overall kind of global question here first. And it's kind of piggybacking on what Trustee Zamora was saying too. So are any of these, as far as we know right now, ones that we think where somebody else is going to carry the water for us? Can we clarify those? Of the 6 that you brought to us.
Nick Saccone for the record. The first one that I would say definitely has some other partners. I can't say specifically who would be sponsoring a bill draft request, but may have other avenues to put forward the recommendations, would be the School Traffic Safety Work Group. I think there are several individuals and legislators that are invested in keeping our kids safe, especially around our schools. I think the state budget process updates may be included in the Commission on School Funding's recommendations. And I would say those are probably the 2 that we have identified a path forward already out of the top 6.
Okay, thank you. And that kind of gives me a segue into kind of looking at, do we actually have, and we're not asking just how important these are, but also do we have the authority, or is it going to be really up to us, or is it, like for example, standards-based grading? Wouldn't that be something that would be under the authority of NDE?
Nick Saccone for the record. That's a great question, and when we put 3 words on a slide and you have a question like that, it makes a lot of sense. We are bound by whatever uniform grading scale that the Department of Education or the State Board of Education adopts, and so this would be looking at potentially expanding that or creating a carve-out to use something like a competency-based learning model in alignment with the strategic plan. And we do not have the authority to do something like that currently.
So I'm going to guess, just so that I don't make this a longer question than it has to be, so that would that kind of be like the same concept as far as like on our number 5 that you brought to us, the state budget process updates that'd be under the kind of the government finance process? Would that be kind of the same concept that we would just be kind of building on to that foundation, or how would that work?
Nick Ciccone for the record. So I actually do have some preliminary bill draft request language from CFO Dayhoff on that one. I don't want to speak confidently to the language other than to say, I think this would be, bring a little bit more clarity and consistency when we're making our budgets, particularly for school level impacts in the next school year.
Okay, all right. I see there's several other people in the queue, so I'll just put myself back in. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Trustee Esparza-Stoffergen.
Thank you, government team, because you spent hours with all of us. And so I will say I like that we kind of are doing maybe an elimination, which makes sense, because why are we going to use a BDR for something that we really shouldn't spend our time with? So I want to ask you, I just know that our superintendent has a big vision to expand pre-K. We were able to get additional seats, I believe, from the state. I understand the revenue short and the flatness of that. But I'd love for you, Superintendent, I want to hear your perspective because you're such a champion for pre-K. And for me, it's like a non-negotiable, but I really want to hear from you first, if you don't mind, giving us kind of what your lens was and what your lens in the future would be, because then I want to weigh in after.
So if you're asking me if I could have what I want,
Yeah.
that would be universal pre-K for 3 and 4-year-olds. You know that I was in New York, and that is what is happening in New York. All 3 and 4-year-olds have the opportunity, right? Parents do not have to send their child to pre-K if they don't want to, but they all have the opportunity to participate. Given the fiscal constraints of where we are at now and how to get there, right? You had to build a roadmap out to that, place where the North Star where we want to be 3 and 4-year-olds, and so how do you on-ramp that? This team has done a really great job in attaining the additional seats, and it's the whole entire team in this room. It's not any one person, but it is 1,700 seats that we'll be adding next year, and we're really excited about that. And then also, too, it's our capacity, right? Do we have the educators? Do we have the space? Do we have the playgrounds? And so I add that in because Brandon and, Assistant Superintendent Brennan, Deputy Gonzalez, and team have worked to attain the $2 million to build out from the state to build out those components. And so building that, ramp, not just saying, I want 3 and 4-year-olds tomorrow, but being practical with what we can actually deliver on the promise. So working those pieces all together will help. The legislature has been supportive of pre-K. The governor, put $140 million into pre-K, not the last biennium because it wasn't there, but the previous, the legislature, and then the governor signed it. So it's something that in the state of Nevada, a lot of people do want to address, which is very positive to see that. But I think that's the trajectory that we're on to be able to move forward. Since I already had them, I do want to add something in all of this conversations because I do want to acknowledge Trustee Bustamante Adams' comment and having been a legislator and having to make those decisions. Also, too, presenting that determination. This team building out the specificity behind is critical because we see a lot of North Stars, but they don't, kind of the conversation that I was just having, they don't build out the specificity of what the entire community of Nevada gains if they move this bill forward. And I've seen time and time again when those who do a really good job do that, the money shows up. And so we need to, as quickly as possible, have this board determine, 3, 4 tonight for this team to be able to dig deep work with our community, right, to build out what that possible bill draft will look like. So thank you.
Thank you, Superintendent. It's exactly why I was asking that question. I want to share with my colleagues to attend a NDE, Early Childhood, last Friday. I was part of a panel, and they shared some research and data from other states and other districts. Chicago is one that has really been putting a lot of investment in a lot of different things. I know New Mexico has universal pre-K, and like you said, New York as well. The only reason I'm kind of, for me, with the pre-K is non-negotiable is because we are asking and looking at our low enrollment. And if you've said it, it's not a secret, like if we can try to have our students enter with us in pre-K and we can expand those seats, and that's gonna be more revenue for us per pupil because the enrollment will go up as well. So I just felt like for me that one, the other thing that I wanted to ask you, because during my session with you, is I asked, could we combine things? Is that still a consideration to put things together?
Nick Ciccone, for the record, yes, that absolutely can be part of the consideration. I just say understanding that some things might be cut throughout the legislative process.
Thank you for that. Okay, I'll put myself back in the queue.
Thank you. Trustee Johnson.
I think it's important that we put first things first always, right? And so if we're thinking about, and Superintendent Ebert has said this on more than one occasion, that the way that we're going to move forward is we have a deeper investment in our district. And I recognize that, sometimes it can be challenging to get what we want, but I don't think it's impossible. It's not an impossibility to find more money. That's a resource of which there is more of. It's not easy to come by, but it's not impossible to get. And so I think if that is the thing that we need in order for us to reach the goals that we've set, and we have a very ambitious North Star, I think we put ourselves at a disadvantage if we go into a legislative session, even if we recognize that, it's, we only have a couple shots to take. We should probably take them on the things that are actually going to move the needle the fastest and the farthest. And so, yes, two of the things we're asking for are financial resources, but to me, those are the things that we need the most in order for us to achieve our goals. And so if we've all recognized, we had 11 independent conversations, and through 11 independent conversations, the top two things that came out were SPED funding, pre-K funding. To me, it feels reasonable for us to say, well, those two things should absolutely be on our docket because, one, the superintendent has explained to us that's how we're going to move forward, and two, in 11 independent rooms, we said those are the things that are going to move us forward. So I just think we have signals that have shown us, we have evidence that say that's what we need to put as our thing. And then superintendent said it best and really eloquently, when we figure out how to get a community coalition behind this effort, we can figure out the way to make sure we get the money. So yes, hard work, but not impossible work, especially if that's the thing that we're going to see to get the results. And I just keep coming back to this. Superintendent said every time that we've seen an investment made in our education system across the state, every single other time we've seen academic achievement increase. And so with that track record, it seems like the most reasonable thing to ask for is the thing that's going to get us the results. The rest of the things are important, but if the thing that's going to get us the results the fastest and that we all agreed on independently, I think it's the thing that we should say, let's do it. Let's figure out how to do this really hard work together so we can get what we need.
Thank you. Trustee Henry.
Thank you so much, Madam President. Trustee Johnson, thank you for everything that you said. It's so very important. And that funding, we need it. We need it. I know one of the things that we haven't touched on just yet is retaining local control of our facilities. As we continue to have conversations around the facility master plans, I feel that it's important for us to have spaces for our students to continue to have education. And also just ensuring that that we're not leasing or selling our properties to competitors. So that's something that's important to me. I just want to make sure to get it on the record.
Thank you. Trustee Biasotti.
Thank you, Madam President. Going back to some of these that were stated here, when it comes to special education funding, it's a little broad. Can you be more specific as to what type of funding? And is there any way we can still incorporate cameras in the classroom for special education classes?
Thank you, Trustee Brad Keating, for the record. So I think as it relates to special education funding, we've looked at a number of different items. It could be additional aids, it could be additional services, it could be additional programming in the classroom. We've got to really look at streamline and figuring out what the options are and bring them to you. If this is the item that we want to bring forward, let us come back with 5 or 6 ideas under this bucket and really make a decision as a team as to what we think is going to really move the needle for our kids and our kiddos with disabilities. As it relates to cameras in the classroom, I've dealt with that bill since 2017. It's a discussion that comes almost every session. We have the discussion. It is a massive amount of money to be able to do. There are also issues with the security and the protection of the students in the classroom as well as the adult in the classroom, and there are issues that relate to that. There have also, where the bill has failed a number of times is when it relates to we have to put a camera in every single classroom because sometimes classrooms move throughout a school building. So we need to put cameras in additional classrooms. Then there's a 30 or a 60-day storage time frame that things have to be saved. That's an additional cost. And it's just become, what it has been is it's a massive fiscal note that the state hasn't been able to fund. So it becomes a discussion point as to, does the state want to bear the cost of that, which is millions and millions of dollars every year, or does it get put on the school districts, which takes out of our per pupil funding allocation directly? So it's gone back and forth. We've heard it a number of times, almost every session it comes up. And it's just, and we've said that if the state's willing to fund it, you know, we're game. It's going to take a lot of work on our facilities team to do it. We can do it on technology, but the state has to fund it.
Okay, thank you for that. And the other one I had was for the standards-based grading. Would this move the traditional grading, the letter grading, to proficiency rates? I had read something of that sort. Is that what that would entail?
Nix County, for the record. So this is still being defined, what we would be actually going after, but I can tell you right now there is a limitation within state law that we have to use the uniform grading scale. Our future conversations with you and stakeholders, if we were to pursue that one, would look at things like proficiency rates, competency-based learning, et cetera. But it is not set in stone by any means yet. Nor would we look for the state to set a policy like that in stone. We would look for the school district to have that additional flexibility.
So I had a couple of things. For the special education, can we potentially, and I know this has kind of been asked, but I'll be a little bit more specific, can we make this like an omnibus bill for special education because there are so many different factors, especially when we talk about funding. So for example, if you want early intervention programs, that's costly. More training, more, we heard from one of our unions recently that they really would like to, for safety purposes, like to have more, you know, people in the room in some of our self-contains. Cost more money, right? So when we start asking for these things, we have like our STAR programs. There's universal programs that are out there that are more rehabilitating than they are containment, if you would, and those cost money. So when we look at these types of things, I've even thought about litigation parameters, which I don't think we would ever get across the line, but man, would it be great to talk about at least to bring some awareness. So as we talk about some of these things, is it possible to make a bill this robust with all of these factors? And in your opinion, does it make sense to, in order to get that funding, does it make sense to ask for like a grant? Or does it make sense to just ask for CCSD specifically? Like, how do you see that becoming a successful bill when it comes to getting it funded?
Nick Ciccone for the record. I think when we're looking at grants-based programs or program-specific, when we're talking about special education, I think that there will be a lot of questions about how does that impact the pure pupil-centered funding plan and how they had devised that over the many years, trying to steer away from program-specific funding. But I will say, if we were to look at an omnibus of sorts or just looking at including many different ideas related to improving special education programs in our school district, I think we could include those in one bill. We just have to flesh out those ideas. And to Superintendent Ebert's point earlier, when we start defining these things and talking about what exactly we're going to be spending the money on, that makes it a more impressive ask and a more reasonable ask for the state to fund.
So would it be possible then to, if we were able to show data on how much the school district spends on litigation in these specific areas, and if these funds were able to mitigate some of those costs, or many of the costs, because we don't have the training, or we don't have the extra people in the room, or if we don't have the program. So if we could show that as a potential, do you think that that would be impactful to say, hey, this could be a situation where we don't need to ask for this money constantly. We could actually mitigate a lot of the costs we're spending now with these programs, and then eventually it just becomes part of what we do. Is that something that's possible with the data that we have?
Brad Keating for the record. We'd have to check the data with the team. I think it sends a strong message. We're talking about a number of different pilot programs that we're seeing great success in and bringing those to the legislature and then asking for funding based on that stuff. So I think we can move the needle on bringing some of those data points to the legislature. To Nick's point, I just want to be clear. I think it's a good idea to bring an omnibus bill and bring the items. When we submit it to the Legislative Counsel Bureau, they can push back and tell us these aren't germane, and then we'll figure those issues out, and we could look at how to tackle. If there's an issue taken out of a bill, we can talk about it with other legislators. The one thing I just want to note, and I applaud this board very much for being passionate and going after big issues. The board has not always gone after big issues, and part of that has been the recommendations of staff. And we've told you, like a legislative, a bill that should be brought forward by the school district is a technical tweak in the language. We should have a legislator bring the bill because they hold they're the heavyweight and they can push it through. I think us bringing bills that are strong are a great idea. I want to be clear with the board, there's a chance that that bill is such a great idea that a heavyweight legislator takes that bill and moves it forward past the finish line. And I think we'd all be happy with that because we want to see it move forward. But I just want to make the point to the group as we move forward, and I think there's some agreement as we finalize here on the big topics, and I agree with those topics, that we will work closely with legislative leadership to any means possible for us to move these ideas forward in the legislative session. That's our goal as a legislative team.
Thank you. I do have one little statement I'd like to make before we go to the next person. I kind of feel like the local control of facilities and pre-K could potentially go hand in hand when you start thinking about if we can expand pre-K, then it becomes about capacity, both with educators and facilities. And so, there's opportunity there that if we hold on to that local control, we can use those facilities for some of these pre-K programs as we expand. So just something that I was thinking about. Trustee Bustamante Adams.
Thank you, Madam President. So I know it took us, and correct me if I'm wrong, it took us 50 years to approve the pupil-centered funding, 50 years, right? And thank goodness to Senator Woodhouse for her and Senator Dennis' leadership, but 50 years. So when we're talking about our revenue as a state, it's going to take 2/3, and that means people from both sides of the aisle to approve to change our tax structure. And so when you start talking about money, it may not be as like rah, let's do it, because now you're talking about people's income. So, but I'm going to stay optimistic because I voted for pre-K and special ed funding, even though I know that the process is a uphill battle beyond any measure. Here's my question. So the Commission on School Funding, they had the conversation about modernizing our tax policy. Doesn't mean that it would increase, it just means that we would spread it amongst wider things that we don't include right now, like digital goods. So my question is that conversation still happening? I don't know if you could answer it, because I'm not exactly sure. So that's one question. The second question, Mr. Dayhoff, is that when the Commission on School Funding talked about the state budget process, they were trying to form a motion and it didn't go anywhere. And so do you feel more confident that the group could come up with a motion that could come out of that body because they get one BDR? So those are the two questions.
Justin Dayhoff, Chief Financial Officer. For the record, Madam President, Trustees, Superintendent Ebert. With regard to the second question, the Commission on School Funding at this time is still considering final options for its bill draft request. However, the certain provisions of the budget process update itself that we're potentially suggesting here are not those that are within the purview of the Commission. One of the challenges we noted in that conversation was around enrollments and count days and the impact that that has on school districts throughout the state. And by leveraging oftentimes a current year October 1, it can force a fall disruption because you reconcile your budgets in the fall, versus using a previous year October 1, which is what we currently use actually for our weighted student counts. Our weighted counts for a PCFP are based from the previous year. One of the challenges that some of the other CFOs raised in that was the current statutory budget timeline process, meaning the timelines by which we have to submit to the state and the Department of Taxation our tentative budget, our final budget, and our amended final budget, and that we have to have all of those things. Currently, as you know, as we just went through, we had our tentative budget here in April. We just had our final budget for you a couple weeks ago. And as you know, and as the Gibson Group actually pointed out when they were discussing the efficiency study, there's an enormous amount of staff time that goes into each individual preparation. And as you also know, both the tentative and the final budgets were based on projections on which we base and reconcile that next year. Imagine instead if we had a budget process where we knew while we were planning our budget the enrollment that formula was going to be based on that next year. So in planning and working with demographics and projections, we could actually put something forward that would potentially mitigate or further reduce our risk to have to do any disruption in the fall, while still staying true year over year and not necessarily perpetuating a hold harmless or creating a cost that otherwise exacerbates the state education fund.
Thank you for that. And so I'm going to stay hopeful for the Commission on School Funding to be able to get that. My question is, was there conversations at the Commission on modernizing our tax policy, and where did that go?
Justin Dayhoff, CFO for the record. Thank you for the question, Trustee. There were early conversations in this iteration of the Commission around the tax structure. When we reviewed the requirements listed and provided to us by the legislature that were a purview of the Commission, addressing and including a tax structure recommendation in our bill was something the Commission decided not to move forward with for this specific iteration of the biennium.
And then my last question, Madam President, has to do with the pre-K. So one of the questions I asked a couple of months ago when we were talking about pre-K seats is that we don't know what the entire gap is for the entire state, right? Because we're not the only district that is struggling with that. And I believe that a number couldn't be given because it depends. It's not just the public schools, it's just not the charter schools, and it's not the private schools. We don't have mandatory reporting to say how many seats do you have available so that we can determine, okay, if we have, just making this up, if we have 10 kids that can fill those seats at the 4 and 5 year old, or 3 and 4, or is it 4 and 5? 3 and 4. And we have 4 seats available, so we know that the gap is 6, right? we couldn't have that number because there is no mandatory reporting for pre-K seats. We can only speculate our number because we know what we have availability, but that doesn't tell us as a state, if we made an investment, how we could move the needle as a whole instead of just our school district. And so I'm just asking, has that been tried before? And could that be like a B or a C in the pre-K funding, almost to the omnibus bill that the president was talking about?
Justin DeHoff, CFO for the record. Currently under the PCFP, we receive funding for pre-K. However, it's at a lower rate. So instead of a student or a full-time equivalent student receiving a 1.0, they actually receive a 0.6, because the original conceptualization of that was that it was not for a full day administration, and but it was also inclusive of and targeted towards special education eligible students only. So that's the current apparatus within PCFP. I'll pass to Dr. Keating or to Nick for.
Nick Ciccone, for the record. I also wanted to touch on the fact that the county and the state knows exactly how many 4-year-olds are in our state. So we can at least have an understanding of what the potential need is. But I think part of the equation is figuring out how many parents want to send their kiddos to part-time programs versus full-day programs, and how many parents aren't actually willing or don't want to utilize a pre-K system. So I think there are many remaining questions regardless of what data we have, based on parent decision-making.
Thank you. Trustee Dominguez.
Thank you, Madam President. I wanted to, I guess, I've been listening very intently to my colleagues, and I appreciate Superintendent Ebert's viewpoint on, and also Trustee Bustamante Adams, your experience in the legislative process. I wanted to I understand where maybe the public is wondering, how can you ask for more money if you're having low results, if you have low academic results? But one of the realities is that Nevada has one of the lowest per pupil funding. And so what our schools are struggling, if I can educate, our public, but what our schools are struggling with is they're doing more with less, and they're trying to figure out how they can excel just on a facilities, on an operation level, and then also not lose staff, but also make sure there's enough staff for our kids. So it's all one big cycle. So until we get more funding, it really is really difficult to say where we could have been if we had even mid-level on the national level of pure pupil funding. And I honestly, I changed my numbering while I was listening to my colleagues here, because I was kind of going back and forth and going, okay, well, maybe we don't ask for funding, but maybe we ask for 5 and 6, the standard-based grading, the state budget process updates, even adding the athletics, the ensuring equitable representation for the athletics portion. But it goes back into funding, and if you teach children to read early, it really does help them. And so I have to support number 1 and 2. And I support it because it is best down the road, and however we can word that to say education funding for whatever way we want to point that to. But I think that it wouldn't hurt us to try to go into that avenue of funding. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Esparza-Stoffergen.
So I think about all the conversations that I've had when I visited schools, and what school leaders said to me was that I have to use more of my general budget to pay for special education. So I think that's a huge argument for us, that we need to analyze that. How much are we actually taking out from our gen ed budget, which is also, to Trustee Dominguez's point, that we're so underfunded anyways per pupil, but look at the amount that is going over. So my thought is this, and we talked about it, and I know, Nick, you are like, your eyes got big on Zoom. I said, why can't we put the funding together? Why can't we put pre-K and special ed together as one BDR? And I know that's a huge lift. I know it's big. It's a huge lift. But it would give us an opportunity to provide the evidence, to get people to get behind it, and then it would give us an opportunity for a second BDR to do what we need to do, retaining local school control of facilities. Our master plan is not done. And those decisions have been made in the sense not made, but have been in unison or with community. So we have told the community there could be potential options. Everything's on the table. So do we have the authority to actually do the things that we said we're going to do with our facilities? So I'm just saying, I know it's ambitious, but we could get a little bit more, and these BDRs could always shift and change and be revised as we go, and we know in the session how things can happen. But I think we could get more by asking for more and combining those.
Nick Ciccone for the record. I do just want to say you're lucky in that you don't have to make the decision to combine any of them tonight. You just have to narrow for us so that we can have those conversations later on in August, and then you can combine them. So just take a little solace in knowing that. But I'll also say that despite how wide my eyes may have gotten, I think we can at least have the conversation with the Legislative Council Bureau about what could be included in one singular bill. And then the final point on the retention of local control for our facilities, just for the broader public knowing what that actually means. In current law, it says what we can specifically do with our facilities. We might be able to go back to the state and say, hey, tell us what you don't want us to do with our facilities, but let us do everything else and keep that local control or expand that local control. So there's lots of options available, and I just wanted to put that out there.
Before I call on our next trustee, I would like to remind the public that this is a business meeting. And because it's a business meeting, I would like to ask the public to please not go approaching other people in the audience while we are in the business meeting speaking about items on the agenda. Thank you. Trustee Zamora.
Thank you, Madam President. My colleague, actually, I didn't think about combining the two bills. One thing I have been talking about when it comes to pre-K is, one of our strategic plans, where did the superintendent go? Was, how do we build build those cultures, right? And I've realized that some families get to benefit from sending their child to full-time pre-K because they are that peer student in a special education classroom, right? So combining those two and maybe using those things would be really important, and I would love to explore that more, and even getting stories, right? Because the reason why I think people don't sign up for the pre-K is because it's only part-time, and it just makes it harder, and that's a barrier for families who need the pre-K programs. So how do we combine all those things together to what you were saying? That was a really good idea. Thank you. I know that the next step is you all are coming back to us in August. As we were talking about heavy hitters stealing our ideas, right, when it comes to special education, do you think by August you can probably have a list of some legislators who have said, SPED is my thing, and then we're able to kind of break down, let's say this legislator cares about having cameras in school, this legislator cares about this other part of SPED, and that way we have a better idea where we can probably fill in the gaps, or how do we combine, or how do we move forward?
Nick Ciccone for the record. Yes, we can do that, and many of them have to file some of their BDRs in August, so we'll have a better idea of what is actually publicly out there on Nellis.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Trustee Cavazos.
Thank you, Madam President, and thank you, my colleague Zamora, for raising that question about the legislators. Because I think some of us have been having conversations already and kind of, not too assertive, but talking to them about what our priorities are. They've been looking at our reference docs and seeing what we're doing here. So I think in going forward, and I like what you guys said, that you're going to come back in August, we can kind of the devil's in the details, what we can do. And so the different ideas about combining these, we have to really think about, we were very successful in the last session. Okay, I'd like to see success again, but I think when we are looking at that, we have to be realistic and look at how we're going to formulate this to be able to, is it going to be something that a legislator can carry for us, or is it something like, hey, we're going to look at something that we have more authority over and that we have the data to be able to present and then voila, maybe, I don't want to say voila because it doesn't happen like that. It's more like sausage making, right, guys? But I don't envy your job, but I am grateful that we have you guys to do that for us. And so would you want us, with the legislators' permission, like say Trustee Zamora has talked to some legislators, I've talked to some, maybe we could align or let you guys know who we've talked to so that we're not kind of repeating ourselves, or they say, hey, we already talked to your government team. So would that be helpful?
Nick Scone, for the record, the more information, the better, and the more effective that our team will be.
Okay.
So
Thank you.
yes, please, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Trustee Henry.
Thank you, Madam President. And I know that we keep talking about a lot of the same things, but I would be remiss if I didn't say that, supporting pre-kindergarten and ECE learning and literacy is like number one priority for myself and should be for our district. We know that those early learning investments have the longest impact in academic outcomes for our students. And it reduces the achievement gaps before they even begin. So I just want to make sure that I put that on the record as well.
Trustee Dominguez?
Thank you, Madam President. I'm ready for a motion if we're ready.
No, we have two for public comment, and then we'll entertain a motion. So if nobody else has any more discussion, I don't see anybody else in the queue. I will first call up Dr. Howell Shaw. Okay. You can add him. And Colette Seaton? Is this about 4.01, what we're talking about now? No, I'm actually trying to make a public comment. Okay, so that would be 5.01. Okay, we'll add you to 5.01. Okay, thank you. Okay, seeing as there is no public comment, I will entertain a motion for our first potential BDR proposed idea, I guess, yeah. Trustee Zamora.
Thank you, Madam President. I would like to make a motion to, is it prioritize? Is that how we're saying it? Prioritize the special education funding.
Thank you, Trustee Zamora. Trustee Dominguez.
I will second that motion.
We have a second. Let's vote. Motion passes. Our first priority right now is funding for special education. Fantastic. I will entertain another motion. Trustee Dominguez.
Thank you, Madam President. I'd like to motion to prioritize pre-kindergarten and early childhood innovative literacy program.
For funding?
For funding.
For funding, okay. Trustee Cavazos.
I will second that motion.
Awesome, let's vote. Motion passes. We have two priorities. Do we have a third? Trustee Zamora.
Thank you, Madam President. I would like to prioritize retain local control of facilities.
Do I have a second? Trustee Johnson.
I will second.
Let's vote. Motion passes. We have three priorities. Do we have another? Now, remember, 6 is the max. If we can keep it to 4, that would be ideal because it's going to make it a lot easier for us in August. But if you have 6, we can go there. Trustee Zamora, again, beating everybody to the, or are you still on? Yeah?
I am, I'm sorry. I would like to make a motion to prioritize transportation funding for career experiences and open enrollment.
Do I have a second? Trustee Bustamante Adams, I see you on there.
Yes, I will second.
we have a second? Let's vote. Motion passes. That's 4. Do we have a fifth? Trustee Dominguez.
Thank you, Madam President. I'd like to bring forward to prioritize state budget process updates.
Okay, do I have a second? Trustee Bustamante Adams.
I will second that motion.
Okay, let's vote. Motion passes. Okay, so we have 5. No, that's 5. Yes. So I will allow one more if we have a motion. I'm not seeing anybody in the queue. Do we want to stick with 5? Trustee Bustamante Adams.
I would just say, Madam President, I think that we should at least do 6, and here's why. Because this is like a playing chess, right? People are going to take on different bills. And so I say we continue to go to give our team the best leverage. So that's my 2 cents.
Okay, do you have a motion?
No. I don't, because I have to look at, well, what was number, we already did, so,
Yeah.
the standard base grading. I propose that we do the standard base grading.
Standard-based grading. We have a motion for standard-based grading. Do I have a second? Trustee Dominguez?
I second the motion.
Great, let's vote. Motion passes. I want to applaud this team. I think that was a super smooth process, and we have 6 priorities. Congratulations. Awesome. And with that, we can close item 4.01. Before I open 5.01, this is your last opportunity to fill out a public comment card and bring it forward. I will close that opportunity here shortly. And by shortly, I mean in the next minute. Lisa, you have a few more? Just one more? Okay.
Yeah, I want to make sure she has my card. She doesn't want to fill out one.
What's your name, ma'am? You're on here. You're on here. Thank you. Okay, let's get started. Mr. Bayless, you're up first. Please state your name for the record.
Here you go, ma'am. Can you give these to the board for me? Sure. Oh, that works. Hello, James Bayless for the record. I guess I'm just mainly coming up here. There's a packet here that you guys are going to see. If you look at one of the images, you'll see a letter from the European Leadership Network. Ironically, me and Kate both have one of those. She was Miss Nevada, so she would have got one. I was with the WB in Disney World, you know, Hollywood. So I have one of those too. Did you know that's that's how Epstein gets his interns? So which means the rumors, like what my topic is, myth versus facts. So if that's the European leadership, how they gets the interns, which means this would be Hollywood's playground, which means we're standing in Epstein's sandbox currently. You may not be aware of it. Because remember, if you look at Pizzagate, that's tied to schools. How is he getting the interns? That European Leadership Network. Now keep in mind, right on the top of it says Board of Education. She got that after she served you guys. That would be tampering with a federal witness. I'm only putting that out there because there's certain things going on with the federal investigation currently, as you guys pretty much are aware. DC's here. I brought them personally. The man's name that ends with Clark, he won't be here much longer. I'm taking care of that too. I've been dealing with the Masonic Order. That's why I haven't been here. I've been dealing with a bigger fight. 50 states. It's kind of a headache. So, long story short with this is If you look at the top, you'll see the gentleman that was ironically in charge of the gang stalking program that comes from Masonic territory. I ran off everybody that was videotaping me. I asked them one simple question. What kind of puppet are you? The one with strings or the one with a hand up your ass? They didn't like that too much.
Mr. Bayless, Mr. Bayless,
Yes.
would you please respect our business meeting and refrain from cursing?
Oh, I apologize. I didn't realize you
Thank
used a
you.
curse word.
It's okay, thank you.
So long story short, I would really like this rectified because my fiance has a contract that came with that letter. It came from the Board of Ed. I'm hoping it wasn't you, because I actually respect you. But you really should find out where that came from, because that is tampering with a federal witness sheet. So there's that situation. With Dusty Callway, your officer, I would like the urge the board to please emphasize with him on returning what he took from me. I have a witness from my cousin Justin that was there the day I was arrested. He took articles out of my green ammo box. He took an emblem, which is a photo. It's my seal for U.S. Treasury. And it's a seal for the Secret Service, people I work for. He took my NSA cufflinks, my presidential lapel, and my tie clip, which was all part of my uniform. And that's why DC's here, because that was all theft.
Thank you, Mr. Bayless. Thank you, Mr. Bayless. I would like to remind the public that one of our policies when we do this is this portion is for anything that's not on the agenda, but preferably if it is within our jurisdiction, things that the board has any kind of oversight on. So just a reminder on that one. Next up, we have Stephanie Kinsley.
Hi, my name is Stephanie Kinsley. I'm here to speak to mostly Joan today because I really want you to feel supported.
Ms. Kinsley, I'm going to have to ask for your help on
It
this.
goes to the whole board, but I
Thank
want
you.
some people to,
Appreciate
this, it's it. And speaking of the whole board, I'm going to let you guys all in on a secret. You guys don't know this, but every time I come here, I sit and I pray for each and every one of you, including the people out in the audience. I don't call your home with threats to you and your family. That's not how we roll because I'm a Christian who loves Jesus. But I just want you to know that. And I do pray for you guys to have the strength to do what's right. I pray for the blood of Jesus to protect you. And I really pray that you guys find the strength to do what's right to protect our kids. And I can see the confusion on your face specifically. So what I'm referring to protecting the kids is A, the grooming stuff needs to stop with the LGBTQRS. Thank you for backing up the parents. And my thing is, I don't hate gay people. I have no hate for anything. But we have to be honest. Gay is just a symptom of childhood abuse or an overbearing mother with an absent father or a weak father. We see there's no gay gene. It's a product of abuse. And I feel bad for people who are struggling with that. I don't want to be normalized for kids, just like I don't want drug abuse to be normalized or anorexia or obesity to be normalized. Those aren't healthy. And sometimes it does hurt your feelings to hear something. Just like if you stink and someone tells you to take a shower, it may hurt your feelings, but someone needs to tell you, you have BO. Take a shower, and it hurts, but then you can move on and be productive. And so with that, I would also like to, what you guys were talking about earlier and how you break everything down by race. I think we all know it's not a race issue. The reason kids can't get to school on time isn't because of the color of their skin. The reason kids are violent in school isn't the color of their skin. It's the content of their character that there's an issue with. The same, normal kids don't stab kids at football games. That's not normal behavior. That's the behavior of a broken child. So I'm asking, just the same way prior superintendents have gone to principals and made them not suspend kids who look a certain way, I'm asking you push back on all those principals and say, hey, if you have troubled kids in your school, push back on their parents. Get those kids living with their dad instead of the single mom who we know can't do it on her own. So I'm just asking you to do what's right, to protect the kids from this evil. And that's all I'm asking. You have all of our love and support for that. Thank you.
Okay, Justin Cooper. I will ask the audience again to remember that this is a business meeting, so please refrain from being loud and applause and all of that. We're conducting business tonight. Thank you. Mr. Cooper.
Abusers go to work. Good evening. My name is Justin Andrew Cooper, and I was the SBT at MJ Christensen Elementary School. I say was because I was bullied, psychologically abused, and discriminated against into resigning. I never wanted to leave. I just didn't realize what was happening to me while it was happening because I was naive, and I believed the people in CCSD were like-minded and genuinely cared about others. And when I reached out for help, I was ignored and dismissed like I didn't matter. The new principal used her authority to put me down, tell me I was obstructing children's education, forced me to sign a summary of conference that I did not agree with, that painted me horrible under threat of insubordination, berated me for not knowing something was implied when not explicit. She denied me recognition of my rave reviews I got for being part of the AED team. She even called CCSD PD on me for walking my dog, and where I tell them that I'm autistic and they just tell me I'm not normal. I have a video recording that incident. What's even worse is after I left, I was informed that she tried to hire a person of opposite sex for a higher grade, 55 versus 52, for a longer term, like 12 months versus 11. During my unemployment hearing, which I won verifying that my resignation was involuntary, CCSD was forced to admit I was in good standing, that they were aware of the problem, and their solution was to do nothing. But unemployment doesn't cover my lost future, and it doesn't cover the PTSD I've suffered from being treated so horribly. Your assistant human resource officer tries to gaslight me, telling me it was my decision, like I wanted to be bullied out of my job. You say CCSD cares and values DEI. Let's talk about that. Communication. My emails asking for help were ignored. When I reached out for distress, I was met with silence. When I called HR on August 22nd at 3:55 p.m., I was told they don't help in these situations. Your chief of HR also ignored my email, but when I came in here a few months ago trying to share my story, she said it was obvious how much I cared, but then silence again. Accountability. The lack of action from HR, from leadership, and from this board has made it clear that this kind of abuse is acceptable. Respect. I was labeled a danger, told I was the one obstructing the education. Meanwhile, the teacher who told the principal I was a danger had a student take math testing with a broken Chromebook screen, delayed Chromebook repairs, and would jump up and do drill sergeant stuff to another teacher's third grade class because I walked by in the hall. And yet, I am somehow the one obstructing education. I do not understand why this level of cruelty and abuse is acceptable. I do not understand why it's acceptable to bully someone out of the job that clearly meant so much to them. Where is the respect? Excellence. What excellence exists in a system that allows administrators to act with impunity and treat the important employees like they aren't even human? In a system that protects bullies, especially ones that are administrators, and discriminates against those who are different. No consequences, no accountability, no remorse, no reason to change. Solutions. There were none. No mediation, no communication, no meaningful intervention. Not even my quest for transfers of knowledge. I was just dismissed and ignored when all I wanted was the very first basic step in conflict resolution, to talk. Because I wanted a place where everyone could feel safe and comfortable going to work, but no one wanted that from me. I'm not a monster. I did not deserve to be treated this way. I deserve accountability. I deserve to be made whole. So my question is now this. Does CCSD actually care, or are they just empty words?
Thank you. Laura Harvey? Please
Good
state your name
evening.
for the record.
My name is Laura Harvey, and I am a retired school teacher, special education teacher, highly qualified special education teacher with a master's degree in educational administration. And yes, I was a school administrator. I used to stand right here and receive my certificates for promotions to become a dean, then a principal, then the ESY director. I've not been back. And I'm telling you that I'm so sad that I don't even recognize this school board or this dystopian nightmare that has happened. I'm going to keep this as brief as possible and I'll try to address things succinctly. I appreciate the district's ongoing efforts to create a safe and supporting learning environment for all students and families, regardless of background. Every child deserves to feel respected and able to deserve a focus on their education. But the first part of this meeting, all I heard was an ad nauseum of data, transcripts, safe spaces, legal applications. Not once. You almost went there. You almost went there about what has any of this done to promote academic growth in our children. Nevada provides a statewide base per pupil funding an amount of $9,400 $9,400 for this fiscal year, but it often exceeds $13,000 to $14,000 because of English language learners and special ed. I know this is true. As the 5th largest school district in the nation, we serve over 300,000 students, yet Nevada and CCSD continue to rank near the bottom nationally in key achievement measures such as the National Assessment of Educational Progress, with proficiency in math and reading in the 20 to 30% range. Ongoing teacher vacancies and reliance on substitutes in place of fully qualified certified teachers is composing challenges to high quality instruction. We have less than 7 hours in a day, and a teacher maybe will spend 4 to 5 hours in direct instruction. They need to be focused on the basics: reading, writing, and arithmetic. The core mission of every public institution must be on enhancing critical thinking skills in our students and their need to succeed in an increasingly complex world driven by AI and emerging technologies. Attracting and retaining fully qualified teachers is paramount. Therefore, I encourage you to get off your ideological soapbox and get back to common sense. Focus on every available minute and resource on improving the learning.
Thank you, Ms. Harvey. Thank you, Ms. Harvey. Next up, we have Ms. Beer.
Hi, Nicole Beer for the record. I wanted to thank the trustees and candidates that are in the audience for attending the forum last month. Thanks a lot for coming. I think everybody is in attendance here tonight. Pride Month was posted 8 days late. You had to scroll past about 5 photoshopped pictures of your employee to get there. And it was really, the recognition was not what me as a queer woman would have expected. We've had much better pride recognitions in a timely fashion over the last couple of years. In addition to that, I wanted to talk about that being just one of your employees' failings, but I wanted to highlight some of the other failings, and while I think it's time to finally decide to pull the plug on her administration. Her continued alignment with fascist initiatives and alt-right ideologies, microaggressions against marginalized communities, including her own, not going with start times that were the most popular amongst those polls, giving start time appeals to high-income schools, mixed or no communication with trustees when asked difficult questions, spending $74 million over 2 years for start time initiatives, the RIF, mostly due to her president and the Department of Education, her buddy, Linda McMahon. Of course, we have a decrease in enrollment. The way the RIF was handled, the inept and cold tone deafness, you're not going to be able to fix that in your employee. I started hearing discontent from leadership, central office, trustees, teachers, community members, legislators last October. There was no way you were going to pull the plug then and admit that you really messed up. But let's stop kidding ourselves. It's time. You got to get rid of your employee. You know it makes sense. And this time, let's not let pressure from outside groups make your decisions just once, so we're not here again in a couple years. Thanks so much, and happy Pride, everybody.
Next up, we have Tanya Atterbury.
Sorry, arrange my clothing. All right, I'm ready now. All right, so Tanya Atterbury for the record. I am now CCSD retired. So when I come to school board, I'll be introducing myself as Tanya Atterbury, CCSD retired. All right, so I did watch the school board debate. So of course, one of the questions was, how are we going to address book banning, which is always asked. No one is asking for a book to be banned, but we are asking that books be vetted for age appropriateness. Just because a book is not on the shelves of public schools doesn't mean it is banned. Banned means all places like public libraries, homes, etc., and not to exist in society. Parents can go to a public library and check out any book that they want for their kids. It is the access to sexually explicit books that is being disputed and should not be found on public school library shelves. If the book has an explicit sexual scene in it, then it should not end up on the shelf in the first place. It is not Regulation 6150 that requires a librarian teacher to be certified, but it is the Regulation 6160. 6150 was in addition. It was made on purpose to be an anti-parent, anti-community regulation. The opposition is not about the diversity of the authors, but is the issue is if the book is sexually explicit. From the book on the shelf, on the shelf of Arborview High School, is called The Court of Mist and Fury. The reason why I'm stumbling is because here it is. His tongue swept my mouth again, in time to the finger that he slipped inside me. My hips undulated, demanding more, craving the fullness of him, and his growl reverberated in my chest as he added another finger. I moved on him. Lightning lashed through my veins, and my focus narrowed to his fingers, his mouth, his body on mine. His palm pushed against the bundle of nerves at the apex of my thighs, and I groaned his name as I shattered, my head thrown back. I gulped down night cool air, and then he lowered me to the bed, gently, delicately, lovingly. If librarians are vetting books, then how are books that include sex scenes being allowed on the shelves? I posted this on social media, and a parent wrote back and said, also, I find it absolutely insane that these ACOTUR books are in schools. I read these as a grown woman, and women who read these consider them smut novels, fantasy romances. While I am a fan of the books, I would be horrified to see a school-aged person just casually pick these up and read them from school as the source. This is the reason why I keep bringing the point that we need to repeal Regulation 6150. We're going to look at all this policy and see that the protocols in this policy are against the parents. The parents have to prove their challenge. It should.
Thank you, Ms. Atterbury. Next up, we have Cyrus. Cyrus, you're going to have to forgive me. So I'm trying to say your name properly. Is Cyrus in the room? Now I don't have to embarrass myself. All right. Mr. Gomez?
David Gomez, for the record, Nevada Peace Alliance president, father of 7 children. You know, everything sounds good when you guys want to do legislation and things like that, but let's talk about that really quick because I have a lot of things to say. Charles I. West Prep got built because I kept fighting the elementary side of it. Not because I went to go figure out what BDRs I need to figure out. I went to go do what I had to do to get it done. SOTs, Michael Roberson's, Aaron Ford, went to go do it. I didn't need to know who was doing what. Either I get on the ground and I use my 210, my 2 feet, 10 toes, and I do what I have to do. But I thank God because I have 2 feet and 10 toes to do what I have to do because I put them first and I put them in front of me so I can use those correctly. You know, the catalytic converter law, I got all the evidence. I got shot at for getting evidence, but I didn't care. I got it done. David Gomez got it done, got the evidence, and submitted it. And then they passed a law. I didn't have to wait 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, and I didn't have a government body of people trying to figure out what was going on. I did it. Then we want to talk about gangs, because I heard Dr. Scavella talking about gangs. I don't understand what's going on. 1820, first gang was called, I think it was called 40 Thieves or something like that in New York. Then, 1920, LA gangs came along. These people are having social, emotional issues. They're having social acceptance. I understand gangs because I live in an area that's highly concentrated with gangs. You're going to ask somebody that lives in Summerlin, Henderson, and Green Valley what gangs are? Are you kidding me? Are you freaking insane? Seriously. Then you're going to talk about these laws again, and going back to that, when we're doing things like we're trying to get funding for pre-K, which I asked our superintendent before she got here, do you support something like that? And she said, absolutely. Okay, universal and everything else, that's great. But when you bring people like Opportunity 180 into our school district that actually takes people to charter schools, that's their whole objective. They do that. And then come in here and say, we want to support schools, early education, all this stuff, and make it good up here, but then turn around and hand our children over to the people that are filling up our second largest school district in our state? Come on, man. Give me a break. Think about what it is you're doing. It just sounds mind-boggling when I listen to one thing go through, another thing go through, another thing gets pushed away. What is really going on with the minds of people? Or do we really need to bring God back into our school district? Because the morale compass is gone, totally.
Thank you. Next up, we have Kimmy Lindsay. After Kimmy, we have Dr. Howell Shaw.
Good evening. Long day. You guys do hard work. My name is Kimmy Lindsay. I am a mother of 4, former EMS, former military. I love this country. I love the state. After October 1, I really fell in love with this place because I saw the community really come together in one of like the most worst harm. Like that was devastating. So I care. And there was a call to action put out by some people that routinely call me a fascist, which is wild to hear, but okay. What is this call to action? What's going on? Well, there's a just demand for pride to be more acknowledged. Well, here's my issue. There's the police detention. They won't allow pornographic books into their facilities because it does increase rage and violence, and fights break out in jail. So they're not allowed pornographic material. Yet our kids are routinely expected to be exposed to this by some people that terrify me, that should not be allowed around children. But okay, I digress. In regards to violence, sure, it may not look like there's an increase. This is insane. Meadows Mall, you all saw it, you watched the news. They had to enact a curfew because of the violence, what's happening in our city. Cowabunga Bay had to shut down their event for their students that got straight A's. It was an awesome event for students who worked so hard to go and have a good time with their families, and they had to shut it down because the kids, the teenagers, were wild. They said you cannot be here unless you're 18 years old or you have a parent with you. Foodie Fest. Foodie Fest. They had to shut that down because the kids were fighting each other, teen fight. So no, the violence isn't going away. There's a problem. Restorative justice is not working. And just because they're not sending everybody straight to jail and they have other programs doesn't mean there's not a problem. We have a serious problem. And I think increased rage, focus on sex instead of what we need to be focused on, our education, that's an issue. Let's take it back to basics. Let's focus on education. There's no use glorifying or celebrating mediocrity. Like this is bad. We need to focus on the things that truly matter in this district, and kids need to feel safe. And with that having been said, it is not inclusive. Our students that are in part of Club America, a TPUSA powered project that love their country and they're taught the Constitution, the Mayflower Compact, they routinely get hazed, death threats, which I've sent to the board so you guys know, the images of kids being shot in the neck, Kirk them, and then, the one that's horrible is there's no good ICE officer unless it's a dead ICE officer, the social media that I've shared with you guys. This is happening in our students. So conservative students are being targeted by groups that call people fascists for no reason other than they love their country and they love the American dream. So thank you so much for your time. God bless you guys.
Okay, Dr. Howell Shaw, and after Dr. Howell Shaw will be Colette Seaton.
Good evening, Madam President and trustees. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Dr. Howell Shaw. For the record, I'm a pastor, former educator here in Las Vegas area, and a concerned citizen who cares deeply about the formation of our children. Tonight, I urge you to remove all sexually explicit and pornographic materials from our K-12 school libraries. The Bible is crystal clear on this issue, and its wisdom applies directly to the protection of our young people. Jesus himself raised the standard in Matthew 5:28. Anyone who looks at a woman lustfully has already committed adultery with her in his heart. Pornography is not harmless. It's not entertainment. It is lust in visual form, and our schools should not be normalizing it, as this is part of the grooming process. The Apostle Paul commands us in 1 Corinthians 6:18, flee from sexual immorality. We are not to dabble in it, study it, or make it available to minors. Philippians 4:8 instructs us to fix our minds on whatever is pure, noble, and right, not on explicit content. Most sobering of all is the warning in Matthew 18:6. If anyone causes one of these little ones, those who believe in me, to stumble, it would be better for them to have a large millstone hung around their neck and be drowned in the depths of the sea. Exposing children to pornography in a taxpayer-funded school library is causing them to stumble. It is not education, it is harm. Psalm 101:3 declares, I will not look with approval on anything that is vile. I hate what faithless people do. I will have no part in it. As trustees entrusted with our community's children, you have both the authority and the duty to draw this line. Parents, not schools, are the primary educators and protectors of their children's moral formation. Our schools should partner with families to build character, not undermine innocence. I respectfully ask you to immediately review and remove all age-inappropriate, sexually explicit books and materials from our school libraries. Adopt clear, transparent standards that prioritize purity, age appropriateness, and parental rights. Our children's minds and futures are at stake. Let us choose protection over exposure. Thank you for your time and service to our community. I'm happy to provide specific verses or to work with you on constructive solutions. God bless you all. Thank you.
Next up, Colette Seaton, and after Colette is David Mendez.
Well, the last time I was here, state for the record, my name is Colette Seaton. I've been here before the school district many years ago, and basically nothing happened, just like what I see is going on now. It's pushing paper, pushing data, and we're talking about our children. I don't want to hear any more about the funding, because when it comes down to the data proves itself that you guys are not doing your job, okay? And I'm coming back 20 years later. I have 4 of my children that went through the school district. 3 of them graduated from Las Vegas Academy with awards. I appreciate the school district for the education they gave them. At the same time, the concern is for the parents. The parents aren't involved. You know why the parents aren't showing up here at the district? You know why we don't have them show up when we all do the, invite where everybody wants to meet the trustee? Nobody wants to talk to you guys. You know why? Because you don't listen. Nothing gets done. It's always pushing paper. And it comes down to the safety. I heard this whole thing for, an hour? And in the end, what was it all about? 31,000 incidences of restoration. You know what that was? Incidents, safety issues. You guys know what's going on. The kids are out of control. You know this. You know the special education's out of control. They're biting their teachers. And all the leaders that are above them, they hide it, make sure they do the report, and you guys hide it. So I'm asking specifically, I'm going to ask you right now, for the record, to implement accountability policies. They're not the same as protection. This is placing a question of public record independently and viably for metrics to prove to the public what you guys are doing. I can't pull everything of what they said, but I don't feel like doing it. And after I saw how it was already back in 2019 and 20, and we're talking about 26, you guys are talking about something that you guys have had implemented for how long? And in the end, you've done nothing. I don't see any change. Last 20 years ago, we were still 48th. And when it comes to the budget, when it comes to the real budget, you guys have, let me think, $4 billion.
So tell me why you can't seem to fix it. Why can't we talk to other states? Why can't we look at other states and what they do and what they implement? And I can guarantee you the other states, they have parent involvement. They want their parents involved. The parents are involved, but you guys shut down everything. Every time that anybody's ever voiced their opinion of what you guys are not doing, you shut it down. And you know what that is? That's unjustful. That's not justice. It's not fighting for the public. It's not fighting for our kids. Our kids are dying, okay? They're dying. You want me to show you the statistics of how much the kids are committing suicide? Because nobody's doing their job, the parents included. So I'm going to do a big
Thank you. Thank you. Up next, Mr. David Mendez to close us out. Let's remember we're in a business meeting, folks. Let's remember we're in a business meeting. Thank you, Mr. Mendez. Go ahead.
Hello, my name is David Mendez, and I just cannot believe that we went so far away from God and common sense. You know, some of you are mothers, and I hope that most of you are mothers. And how can you allow this to happen to your kids? How can you allow this to be on schools, to have pornographic books and all that stuff, when a lot of us that we know more, we don't want to see those things. We don't want to read about it. You know, we don't want to know about it. How can we allow our kids to know all the stuff when they don't supposed to know anything about it? It's very sad to see that we're not doing anything. You know, we gotta stop. I'm sorry if you feel different. You know, if you feel that you're not in the right body or whatever, you should seek mental health so you can get back to your roots. Because we should not be fighting. We shouldn't even be talking about all this craziness that we have in schools right now. All those pornographic books, they create more violence, they create more rape, they create more problems instead of educating our kids. And also all this craziness with the transgenderism and the Islamism is creating a lot of problems that we may not make it to see what the result is going to be. But our kids or our grandkids are going to be paying the price for all the stuff that we're allowing right now, because we want to be tolerant of the other people. We want to be tolerant that you feel different. We should be, I'm sorry, it's okay. And we should stop doing all that. You know, and the other issue, I want to thank Ms. Dominguez that she bring this really good point. We need to change the way the school system works in having control of the kids. My son's car was stolen by a 14-year-old. It was the second time he stole a car, and the other kid was a 15-year-old. The 15-year-old was not in school for 7 months. Nobody went to check on him. The mother, when she was in court, she looked like she was drug addict already. And they took my car from Rainbow and Cheyenne. That's where we found it. And the police show up, and they took off more than 100 miles an hour, all the way down to Lake Mead and Hollywood. And they stopped over there because they ran out of gas. And when I went to jail, all they got was a slap on the wrist, and don't do it again. That doesn't teach them anything. You know, we need to be more strict with our kids. The school has to check more on all this. I don't know how we can do all that, but I think that's what we need to start doing. And we got to remove all this craziness that is on the schools, all this pornographic stuff, that they should not be seeing it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. That concludes 5.01. I'll open 6.01, which is an upcoming meeting announcement, which will be Thursday, June 25th, 2026 at 5 p.m. I will now open item 7, adjournment. Can I get a motion? Trustee Dominguez.
Thank you, Madam President. I'd like to motion to close the meeting.
Thank you. Can I get a second? Trustee Zamora.
Thank you, Madam President. I'll second that motion.
Thank you. Let's vote. Motion passes. We are adjourned.